All right, good morning and welcome to the Risky Investment Throne Open. Andrew Beckstrom, Patrick Sullivan here back in the saddle for another weekend of Throne action as we are going to be bringing you the top 93 round to start. We had 93 players qualify for today's first round of action, and then we'll be breaking that down with single elimination best of three matches until we get down to our champion where they will take home the biggest share of our $5,000 cash prize pool in this open event this weekend. So, my partner this weekend, Mr. Patrick Sullivan.
Hey, how's it going?
Good morning. How are we doing?
Pretty good. Ready to get going here. Throne's always very fun for me to cover because it's this combination of new yet familiar. It pulls from the entire game's history. All cards that have ever been released are legal. And so you're going to see a lot of staples. If you've been away from the game for a couple of years, a lot of what you see, you'll probably be at least a little bit familiar with, but there's always new stuff coming out. There's always live balance changes. And so it's never the same format, even if the foundation is pretty similar typically from tournament to tournament.
All right, so this weekend we get to see the debut of a number of cards on our tournament stage for the first time. We are coming off the heels of the release of our latest set, Enter the Arcanum, with its 24 new cards in the game, and there's a bunch of them that we're going to be seeing in action for the first time this weekend. No beating around the bush, though. The biggest player this weekend that we'll be seeing from that set is the Creation Project, a new 3-cost Firetime Justice relic. Your units have +1/+1. At the start of your turn, give the top card of your deck Warp this turn. Patrick, players were quick to jump on that card as one of the breakouts from this set. And kind of why is it so strong if you've never seen it in action before?
Well, decks that are aggressive, decks that are playing with a lot of units, are typically in the market for one of two things: something that helps them push through damage early on in the game, or something that gives them staying power later in the game against resistance. This card is capable of doing both at a very efficient rate. Now, there's a lot of ways you can go with this card. Giving Warp to the top card of your deck, that cuts a lot of different ways. You could say, well, I just want to play with nothing but cheap cards and just sort of keep the faucet on. The other way to approach it is, well, I'm going to have more power than I typically would in the average game because sometimes I'm going to be warping into power. Do I have stuff that I can convert into real cards later on in the game? Are there things I can do with all this extra power laying around? So even though the card's very strong, very straightforward, that sort of choosing the path of, am I trying to stay as low to the ground as possible and just be super efficient playing off the top, or do I want to say, well, I'm going to have all these extra cards rolled up? What are expensive things I can look at? Where are ways I can leverage my market to convert these sort of things? And through the day two list that we have here, we see both of those sort of philosophies on display. And I think ultimately it's going to kind of land in the middle. That players are going to want to have a variety of cheap things to make use of the +1/+1 and to make sure the warp is super efficient, but also something to kind of leverage if the game happens to go on for a long time.
Yeah, anytime you're talking about a 3-faction card, that means there's an even deeper well than normal if you're going to be playing with it of potential cards to be surrounding with it. And so we'll be seeing players battling it out to kind of see what's going to be maybe the best build going forward. There's ones where you're just maybe splashing one of those factions, and then there's versions where we've got one player in the field who's combining it with Grand Suppressor and Belax the Ravenous. So it's definitely a flexible card in that it provides a lot of utility for a variety of Firetime Justice decks.
Well, and another sort of complication or wrinkle with the deck building is, again, you can kind of go down one of two paths here, which is one path is making my deck as strong as possible when I have this card, and the other philosophy is, well, I'm going to be fine in the games that I do have this card. How can I make my deck as functional as possible in the games where I don't? And that's another interesting sort of dimension for these sort of straightforward build arounds is either putting your foot on the pedal to make it as powerful as possible when you do have it versus as functional as possible in the games when you don't.
And of course, when you have a card that's breaking out with in a special type like relics, it's going to mean that you're going to be seeing players be changing up what forms of interaction you have this weekend. We'll be seeing more copies of things like Dismantle, Reappropriator, the Shadow Valkyrie that can steal relics. So players definitely came prepared if they're looking to play longer games with ways to interact with that relic, and that's given a boost to some strategies. We've got a great variety of shadow decks this weekend that are making use of it. The Xenon Reanimator decks that we had seen dominate in recent metagames has kind of adopted. It's removed Vara now for a lot of these players' decks, added in reappropriators, and it's kind of trying to bolster up that fair game that the deck can play so well. So won't get to see any of those ridiculous combo turns, but it's still a very powerful deck when you have that core engine of filling up your void with power, bringing them back, and then using it, grasping at shadows, or just getting enough power to play something like an Azendo Revealed.
Yeah, and I think another card to look out for this weekend is Archimport Noble. Obviously fits very well into the skeleton of the deck. Is a very powerful thing to give Warp to because it's so efficient and is also just sort of a broad, flexible, powerful card, agnostic of the specific metagame consideration. So if we have Justice decks prevalent, I would expect to see a lot of that card too.
And we'll be seeing that, as well as there's a whole bunch of one-off decks. If you look at the deck list breakdown from this weekend, everything from Mono Time taking advantage of the new card All-Nighter, to Leer Headmistress. We've got a number of decks that have taken Catalyze in different directions. We'll be starting off checking out Random 7945's deck. They're playing an FPS control deck with Catalyze, and they're using that with Send a Message to get some extra value there, but also got all kinds of fun shenanigans playing with like Unstable Form and some other extra looting effects to gain card advantage. We've got Roshi brought a factionless deck this weekend, taking advantage of some of the new factionless power that's been printed recently. So a lot on display this weekend, and anytime we start off, there's always going to be that narrative going into it, but then that's not always going to match up with what we'll be seeing by the end of the event, and we'll figure out sort of how the Throne metagame moves on from here.
Very excited to see a factionless deck in action too. That's one in my experience where, it's a bit of a joke, a bit of a meme, whatever, but the deck is just not that short. And every single card that gets printed that's like plausible for the deck, a factionless power that does something really good, it's like, okay, now I get to cut 4 mediocre cards for 4 really strong cards. You do that enough times, eventually you end up with a real deck, and we'll see if it's this weekend.
Yeah, and there's always just, some of the factionless cards like Tempting Offer, they're just really good at making the new factionless stuff even better than it would be otherwise. So lots of reasons to check out factionless. As many players have shown us over the years, I don't think we've ever seen it win a tournament, but maybe this will be the weekend. So for on cue for us today, we're going to be checking out, as we said earlier, 93 players battling it out. They'll get us down to our top 64. And then we will be doing still single elimination, best of 3 Throne matches the whole way through until we have a champion. When a round starts, we'll check out a featured match. We'll watch that match to its completion, jump in and find any other matches going on in the round, as all of our players will be playing simultaneously. Once all the matches in a round are done, come back here, wrap it up, go on break for a few minutes, check out a recent winners interview, and then move on to the next round. And it'll be me and him in the booth all day, so settle in. Who knows what kind of nonsense, like you mentioned with Throne, there can always be some curveballs we might have overlooked scanning through the deck lists.
Yeah, especially 93 players, a lot of one-of deck lists out there. Don't know if any of those decks are going to make a deep run just yet, but my experience covering these Throne Opens, there's usually something weird that's making its way to the top 32, the top 16, and beyond. Got to back up, though, for a minute. So you said we got 90-some-odd players here.
Yeah.
We're going down to a top 64.
Mm-hmm.
That means that some people are playing this round and some people are not.
Yep.
How do we decide that?
So for the player, the way that you qualify whenever we have an open is you can join up. It's open for entry for anybody who wants to play. You don't have to be qualified or anything like that. And you will do a 14-game run, best of 1 matches in the given format, in this case Throne. If you get to 10 wins or more in that run, you qualify for Sunday. Now, if you don't, you get one more opportunity. You could do up to 2 runs in an open. You can even change your deck. For the players who do qualify for today, we first look at how many wins you got in your qualifying open run, so rank based off of that. And then, as a tiebreaker, we will use your highest finish on the ladder in this month or last month. And so wherever you're at will allow us to be able to say, you know what, if you played really well on the ladder, we see you're a dedicated player, you get a little extra boost in the standings. And that can come up with these buys with a 93 player first round. That means we're going to need to eliminate 29 players, and so 58 players out of our 93 will be battling in this first round today.
Yeah, and the buys are obviously a huge deal in a single elimination tournament because you just don't know which round will be your loss. So anyone that you get to bypass is a pretty big advantage.
That's right. And that's why we do best of 3 for our opens on Sundays, because, we do need to eliminate people down, but we want to make sure that, sometimes you make one wrong decision, have one bad draw step, and this allows you the opportunity to bounce back with that while still keeping each game very high stakes and getting the tournament moving towards a conclusion nicely.
Also, keep in mind another difference from the ladder here is that players have access to each other's deck lists. And so we're playing 2 out of 3, and when you sit down across from your opponent, you know exactly what it is in their list. And so that adds another interesting little wrinkle and dimension that's not typically on the ladder. It does inform sometimes the way that people choose decks for these tournaments. I've talked to some of our best players where they say, well, I do like this certain deck on the ladder, but I avoid it in the opens because once people know what your deck list is and they know what to market for, it's a whole thing. So that's another dimension. We don't want players to feel like being in a feature match is a disadvantage or anything like that. So we just give out the deck list. Everyone has them, but that's another element of this that's different from the ladder, and you're probably going to see some different plays as a result of that information.
Yep, and we do have a 10-minute delay on our broadcast this weekend and every weekend, and that's to ensure that there's no peeking and trying to see the hands for both players that we'll be getting to see at here this and sharing it with all of you at home. So thanks for joining us this weekend. Should be a fun time, and we got more new good stuff coming up in Eternals soon. We got a new chapter starting up not this week as we're still being August. We've already concluded the August chapter, but we'll be starting off with a new chapter, new cards, and that's one of the fun things that we've gotten to do in 2022 is every Wednesday there's a new card coming out, and you can earn it just by playing. And we see some of the chapter cards showing up in the event this weekend. We got Krogar showing up in some of the Xenon lists, and the few more out there, and it'll be fun to see as always what comes out on top. Let's get things going. Top of your screen, we've got Random 7945, and they're playing an FPS control deck that, well, looks like it didn't quite work out for them as they blew up there. So not sure exactly what's going on, why that went down. We'll be back here. Patrick, your thoughts on game number 1?
Looks like a bad matchup for Random. They didn't even – I mean, it was turn 0.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen turn 0 in Eternal before.
It's pretty hard.
Pretty hard.
I know. I know we've had players over the years try to pull off a turn 1 kill in Eternal before. I'm not sure that I've ever seen one go down. It is, of course, theoretically possible. I've seen some of the script, some of the ideas for how the game could unfold where you could get that, but hasn't quite happened yet.
All right, so we're looking at. I'm assuming the easiest path is your opening hand has 4 copies of Incarnus.
Infernus,
excuse me. Infernus.
Yeah.
And then how do we finish off from here?
So, yeah, I mean, 4 Infernuses is 20 damage, and then if you can find a way to give double damage on that first turn of the game to one of the Infernuses, that would get you there. So Gift of Battle gets it done.
Okay. Or, so for Fire Sigil, anything that gives +1 to everything, and then a Warring Shot?
That's another nice way to do it. Yeah, you Bard Violence.
Yeah.
You need Shadow Influence to play that. But Bard Violence is actually in one of the lists this weekend.
You can get undepleted Fire Shadow on turn 1.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah, it certainly gets easier if you can do it. All right, we're going to check out Cassandrith here now. Cassandrith is battling with Mono Time this weekend. In the past, they've been doing a dedicated sort of Talir combo, but this weekend, a little bit more fair, going with Talir Headmistress and playing with All Nighter, which is a great new 1-cost removal effect. And so what we got queued up for here is we got an FTJ deck down at the bottom. I bet there's a creation project in play. I see all those units getting +1/+1. Silence all enemy units, kill all enemy attachments.
That is pretty good against attachments and units with text box. Gotta say, Cassandra, good metagame read this weekend.
Absolutely. So we're going to be doing some rebuilding now. Mega Wailord has played a Dinosaur Nest, and now they're attacking into the Tokas, representing Torch that they do have. Cassandrith just going to take the 3.
Yeah, that play might seem, a tad conservative from Cassandra's side, but their hand is so well situated against Torch that I think it's worth erring on the side of caution a little bit to make sure that you have enough power to play all the haymakers you see left over in their hand.
All right, so following up now with a Moonstone Vanguard. That one does a nice job of putting you ahead with drawing cards on the attacks and then gaining health every time it blocks 5 health. Mega Wailord, though, great draw. Fearless Crescendo, 1 cost, give a unit flying. The only problem with that one, Patrick, the Tokas on the other side.
Got it covered. And I mean, Moonstorm Vanguard is, like a really big gut check for these style of decks. It's very hard to just win by attacking and blocking against that card uncontested, especially when your units are smaller. And so it's Mega Wailord's gonna have to kind of finagle their way out of this one. It's not easy to do, but if they don't answer this Moonstorm Vanguard now, to say nothing of Cassandra's leftover, it's going to be very hard for them to win this game.
So I think we're going to see the Moonstone Vanguard go away. I'm just assuming so. We saw Fearless Crescendo get played against, get played on the Moonstone Vanguard. Tokas prevents you from playing spells on your own units, but not on enemy units. And so did that just so they could get in the market. It allowed them to use Pristine Light to remove the Moonstone Vanguard. Didn't really open up an attack, and now here we go, Worldbearer Behemoth.
Yeah, I mean, Cassandra's deck is a hand at this point. It's just going to be hitter after hitter. Moonstorm Vanguard is definitely the prize of the bunch, just because the gaining health in the spot kind of closes the door. There's nothing wrong with Worldbearer Behemoth, but with a Dinosaur Nest, a Torch, it's not over here necessarily. Cassandra really would like to gain some health or find an answer to the Dinosaur Nest.
All right, Relay Point plays a 2/1 soldier, and then if you exhaust 4 of your units and sacrifice Relay Point, you can play a 5/5 Sentinel. So that'll buff up the power cell, get a 5/5 into play. And now for Cassandra, we're going to be hitting again with Worldbearer Behemoth. They hit a Time Sketch. Will they use that? Looks like they're going to pass on amplifying.
Yeah, hand is just way too good to spend power that way. Cassandra's a little clogged up here, and so not surprising to see Cassandra say, you know what, I got better things to do with more power this turn.
So we are going to see a combo block down on the Worldbearer Behemoth, trading off with that, but another one in tow for Cassandra, along with an Allhead Ascending, which getting pretty close to that 8 influence mode. Nothing doing off the top of the deck there for Mega Wailord. They've cleared the way of flyers, so maybe there's a route to go. So Cassandra does have a copy of Talir Headmistress in hand. Not going to be attacking or playing that one. Amber Waystone gained some health back from the Worldbearer Behemoth attack.
That's a big hit right there. Just a little bit of cushion is all that Cassandra needs. And I like not playing the Talir here. Mega Wailord has a sea of chump blockers ready. It makes a lot more sense for Cassandra to try to control the damage raise here by only attacking with Overwhelm units and then trying to leave non-Overwhelm units back to block. So the Talir is just not an efficient use of power this turn.
All right, Mega Wailord draws Exodus. That's one of those chapter cards from the recent Shavka chapter. 3 cost fire time spell. Give all of your units +1/+1 charge and endurance. But looks like they played that one as power there. So we're going to see just an attack with the flyer. And now for Cassandra, if they can get one more time influence, that Allhead Ascending will be online, and there's a good chance the Worldbearer Behemoth, if it attacks, will deliver there. All right, well, here's Talir Headmistress, and she's attacking. Allhead's attacking. We hit Time Symbol and Time Sigil.
So the issue here is that this attack is short of lethal. I'm surprised. If I was in Mega Wailord's position, I would probably be saying, look, the game's becoming untenable here. I'm about to get overwhelmed by all this stuff. You just take the lumps from the overwhelm units. That's 11. You can go down to 1. You're not likely to win, but the minute that your board starts eroding here by blocks, there's really no hope of being able to crack back for enough damage to win the game.
So another Tokas. So if Mega Wailord is going to get out of this, it's going to involve Fearless crescendoing once again on one of Cassandra's units and then coming up with a great 3-cost spell. Otherwise, an alpha attack coming back will end the game.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine what that could be, because part of the problem here, as you mentioned, you can't target your own thing. And so anything that you send up as from Cassandra here actually allows Cassandra to block the dinosaur. And so it's very complicated trying to cobble together enough damage in that way.
So Display of Realities, yeah, that doesn't do enough. That one allows you to kill enemy relics, give a unit your hand +1/+1 in charge, or make a 1/1 deadly. So, you know, they would have been able to maybe play that, make a deadly 1/1 Scorpion, block the World Bear Behemoth, but it was going to be a pretty nasty block and remove just about all of their ability to counterattack and then win the game. So
we saw from, Cassandra's side there, a curve with a lot of power acceleration, not a lot of units that are vulnerable to torch, and then some very powerful units on the top end. Not a lot to interact with flying units, and not a lot of ways to gain health outside of Moonstone Vanguard. Those are usually the ways that you lock up the game against decks that are more aggressive than you. You find a way to lock up the air so no evasive units can take care of you, and then you gain some health so you're not going to get burned out by torch or some way to make all of your units not able to block for a turn or whatever. So even though by the end of that game it looked like Cassandra's advantage was pretty overwhelming, which it was, the game was a lot closer in terms of who could win. Is Mega Wailord a draw step away from turning this thing around? If Moonstone Vanguard goes uncontested, then that's probably going to be an easy win. That one is just too much in terms of the card draw and the gaining health. The other stuff, for as powerful as it is not shutting the door on Mega Wailord's ability to win the game, even if Cassandra's accruing a lot of advantages.
yeah, and the mono time deck has the advantage of having one of the smoothest power bases we'll see nicely, except for the time symbols. We're really just going to be seeing their power come into play undepleted. Definitely a big sort of benefit you get there. On the other side, the FTJ deck, I think the real question for when you're building these power bases is how much do you care about going deep on influence for anything? If you're willing to just play with things like vows and diplomatic seals and Zoltan conclaves, you're going to be able to get to FTJ exactly early on in games, but there's always going to be cards that are going to pull you to have, the second and third of their influence within that sort of broader archetype, whether, maybe you want a little like cantripping action like Temple Scribe, and that's going to be where you might have to go a little bit deeper, actually play with banners and things like that. As you saw at the end of the game, there was Display of Realities. That's a triple time card coming out of the market.
Yeah, and it's that power versus consistency thing, and when the top card of your deck has Warp, it's kind of incentive to just like I said earlier, just keep the faucet on. Like, don't muck around too much with your influence there, and just make sure that you can just play a steady stream of cards off the top. There's a big cost in power in going down that way in terms of strength of your deck, and if your relic happens to get blown up, then what do you have on the leftovers there? So that sort of push and pull there is very complicated.
All right, so getting things kicked off here. Mega Wailord, bottom of your screen. This is not a great hand in the sense that it does have the creation project, but it really doesn't have anything it's very excited to play on the first or second turn of the game. Abundance, much better if you can use that in sequence with other cards. And then Torch, it's slow. There might not be anything to kill on the first or second turn.
And when you're playing against a deck with Passes of Aeons, the Pride Leader, very hard to lean that heavily on a hand that's like kind of all about one relic and very little else.
So let's see exactly how Mega Wailord plays this. They played Praxis Painting on turn 1, so we could just see them fire off an Abundance here, knowing they have the Creation Project and Aurelian Supplier to gas them back up, but they're going to hold off now for a moment. Combrei Painting. So we've got all 3 factions unlocked for Cassandrath. Gonna maybe start off accelerating with a Devotee of the Sands. That unit's shifted, won't be able to torch that.
Very nice start here for Cassandrath. It's really about getting out of the first turn or two with your head above water, and Mega Whale Lord has not done really anything of note so far. The project's about to get blown up. Very, very strong start here for Cassandrith.
All right, so Grenadin Drone, bringing along a couple 1/1s, but man, that 3/5 on the other side. Gonna do some blocking now. Aurelian Supplier will draw us 2 more. Aurelian Infestation and a Fearless Crescendo. All right, so some selection now in hand with Fearless Crescendo. You mentioned how big flying could be, and yeah, look at this hand for Cassandra. No easy ways to stop a flyer. Tokas, though, back to cause more annoyances.
Once Cassandra develops their power, who has the stronger cards? It's just not really that close. So it's just keeping an issue of keeping your health total high, trying to stick something like Moonstone Vanguard that can generate a recurring advantage, and making sure that no stray relic kind of sneaks through to cause trouble while you're dominating with your units.
So look at this. So Mega Wailord plays out Relay Point. That makes a soldier. Aurelian Infestation played 2 Shifted Scorpions, and now we're going to Abundance. We're going to get a random 5-drop and gain a little health back. And they got Silverwing Commander. 4/4 Flying Warcry too, Patrick.
Do a lot worse than that. I mean, it's a flying unit, which, as we all know, Mega Wailord really needs. And the Warcry triggers can be very nice here in terms of trying to get a second thing that's large enough to brawl with what Cassandra's got going on.
So Cassandrith has Talir Headmistress, and if Mega Wailord doesn't want to let Cassandrith replenish all of their power, they'll need to do a chump block here. Yeah, they could have double blocked, but they want to keep around the Silverwing Commander.
And even though that turn is a little modest there from Cassandrith, this issue is going to be presented to Mega Wailord every single turn of the game. And this, going forward, these chump blocks are going to get more and more problematic to keep making until those Scorpions come online at least.
Last game, Mega Wailord used Fearless Crescendo and played Pristine Light in the same turn. Of note, they don't have Double Justice, so Pristine Light isn't even on the table at the moment. But Display of Realities is something they could grab. See if they got anything else exciting for us in their market. They got Malaga Amphitheater. This is the new alternate art Malaga Amphitheater. Did recently for 4th of July.
It's going to be a really disappointing slow, I think.
Yeah, that's sounds right. And we will see a Moonstone Vanguard go up to 10, but Cassandrith is just 1 power away from that. And with a Tokas in hand, they're not far.
Well, and also just, they can just spend 9 next turn on their 9 power worth of units if they want to do that, and then 2 straw steps to 10, so just not a whole lot of value there from the slow.
Well, there we go. Who's got the warp now? Seal of Devotion off the top for Cassandrith.
That's free.
Factionless power that has warp as long as you don't have more than 1 faction of influence.
Cassandrith figured it out.
So over the next 2 turns, Cassandrith is likely able to get the Amphitheater off the board. But they're going to actually go to the face, and that's just because of maybe how aggressively they think they can get the game over. I mean, if they're going to throw out a Moonstone Vanguard and a Sabertooth Pride Leader.
Well, also the Amphitheater just doesn't really matter all that much. And honestly, if your goal here is to get Wailord to chump block a little bit and whittle down the board a little bit, the Talir is probably more threatening in terms of whatever would come from that trigger, then it's worth trying to protect the Amphitheater.
Funny, Tokas is forced the daring maneuver if it was going to get played on an enemy unit. So continuing to cause problems.
It's really nice when you're playing with Tokas, which is just kind of a card you're just happy to play with in these ramp decks. And anytime it actually is good against your opponent for that static ability, it's like, wow, there's just so much going on here. So much good stuff.
All right, here's another Pride Leader. It's going to take out the Relay Point. A World Bearer Behemoth is picked up. So a bunch of fatties are going to come through. Still, those deadly scorpions are one turn away from coming down. The Moonstone Vanguard drew a fellow Moonstone Vanguard. Actually, this attack is going all at the site. Cassandrath, even if they were to use all of their available blockers, could not keep the site around. So unless they're going to like combo block down one of these units, this is going to be a no blocks. Alright, so Cassandrath successfully dealt with the Amphitheater, got through the slow even, getting Malaga Amphitheater down. And now Mega Wailord has picked up Exodus, so that gets to buff up the Scorpions that are unblockable this turn. The Silverwing Commander would also get through, so that... And plus Torch, wow, Patrick, I'm counting 12 damage coming across here.
Yeah, it just looks a little bit short. I don't know if this sets up for an attack the following. I guess also that's the other issue, right? You're priced into torching the Crescendoed card. And now we're in double Moonstone Vanguard territory.
Yeah, so we're going to see 2 more cards be drawn. Another Seal of Devotion on top.
Love seeing that Seal of Devotion.
Yeah. So the Scorpions are going to be able to do some blocking here. Lighten up this board a little bit, and maybe if something really exciting comes off the top, that combined with the Exodus can get it done for Mega Wailord. Cassandrath is only at 9. It is tricky though, because any attacks on the ground, if there's a Moonstone Vanguard around, will not really work. Okay, so we're going to see time etchings, and does Cassandrath have something here that can really lock up the game? How about a Nash Desert Prince to put all of the flyers, including that Silverwing Commander, on the bottom of their owner's deck? Aurelian Infestation off the top for Mega Wailord. They can play it, get a Scorpion, Exodus it up, but that doesn't look to be enough to win. And down a game here, this might be the final turn of the tournament for Mega Wailord.
Yeah, looking here to see, I guess they have enough chump blocks to get out of next turn, but then after that it's not going to be, there's not going to be anything left. So, all right, congrats to Cassandrath.
Yeah, Cassandrath, it was a pretty smooth 2-0 victory for them there. And, you know, sometimes when there's a hot new deck, you got to decide, do you want to try to innovate, join the trend, or maybe be teched out, find a good matchup. Cassandrath chose that latter route, and boy, it sure looked good there.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said for the way that Cassandrath's deck is set up against Creation specifically. You have, between your market and the Sabertooth Prior Leader, you have a lot of interaction for relics in game number 1. And another way that you can beat, okay, my opponent's small units have +1/+1, they're warping off the top of their deck, they're getting the look at an extra card return. It's just, here's a Whirlbearer Behemoth, here's Moonstone Vanguard. These are units that are unchecked there, more than able to come up with the same sort of value as that relic in a way that's, you know, harder for some of these decks to get off the table.
All right, so we've got Felon up in action at the top of your screen. At the bottom, we got Lights Out Ace. Lights Out Ace on a Time Primal Shadow deck. This looks to be some... Oh, I know what deck they're playing. They're trying to combo off with Eclipse by cost reducing it down to 1 and then playing it a bunch of times. Though with that Obstructive Flicker in hand for Brantar, this is going to be a tough road. So yeah, so we see Felon got a nice boost this recently with the printing of Direwood Pack. Haven't seen one of those yet. Yeah, there's that Eclipse for Lights Out Ace, but this is going to get messed up pretty good by Obstructive Flicker. They gain an enemy spell that isn't fast. Does Lights Out Ace have a way to go into their market and get some kind of Void Recursion? Because this deck is extremely all in on cost reducing an Eclipse down to 1 and then playing it enough times to win the game.
You would assume, right? I mean, it's not like your market's doing much else. If you're this all in on the combo, most of it's going to be just insulation.
So there's Excavate. So definitely still a possibility. Eclipse is gain 3 health, Scout with Unleash, and every time that you play it, if you've already gained 9 health this turn, you get to play a 9/9 Radiant that has some other cool text we can talk about, but really, really potent if you can play it enough times. Right now, Lights Out Ace would be able to only play it twice and get a Radiant off of it, so not necessarily enough right now, but I'm not sure how much time they have otherwise.
Yeah, I like that play a lot from Brantar there. You know, the ideal interaction there involves just countering this thing. The second best thing you can do is pin maximum power, because that's sort of the bottleneck once Eclipse is actually going. So taking care of that Aurelian Merchant might seem innocuous, but again, it's sort of the best way to interact from this spot.
So all these units are getting shrunk from Iadria. Whenever Lights Out Ace's units blocks, they will have their strength reduced down to 1, and whenever they attack, they'll have their health reduced down to 1. Send an Agent. Most of the good units out right now are multi-faction. In fact, everything except for the 1/2 Cloud Snake is a multi-faction unit. So, and yeah, we see Lights Out Ace did not excavate end of turn. They might feel pressured to do it, I think, this turn. But once they do that, they have to ride those Radiants the rest of the game. And I don't know that their deck is capable of that. Off of just 2.
Yeah.
In this spot, anyway.
Brantar picking up a Blight Pass Smuggler there, so seeing if there's anything maybe they want to do before combat.
Well, it's going to be the Flyers for now. And Midnight Gale, 4/4 Flyer, has Infiltrate, gain Lifesteal. So that will happen. So it looks like no Blight Pass Smuggler. We're just going to use the ability of the Uncountable. Discard a card, sack a unit, pay 4, exhaust the Uncountable, and play an Impending Doom. That'll get hit by Send an Agent. Lights Out Ace really hoping that they can draw another power before playing this Excavate. But unfortunately, they can't. And when you Excavate, you're just putting the card from your Void back on top of your deck. So you're not necessarily... So they know they're not going to get more power until at least 2 turns from now.
Yeah, they got to sit and wait, and they're not really in a great position to be sitting and waiting right now.
There's Champion of Cunning, fully powered up. It's got flying, it's got Aegis. At the end of your turn, it gives all your units +2 strength. So there we see Eclipse be put on top of the deck. Lights Out Ace is going to gain a tremendous amount of health here. Unleash it once, and Scout, they put that to the bottom. And Exploit, they're going to need some help on the board. Do it again. They hit an Unstable Form. Is that what they need? Because next turn they could Unstable Form and transform those giant Radiants up to something more useful.
Yeah, I can't imagine. You know, I don't know. It's one of those spots where, like, I don't know if that's enough, but I can't imagine there's a better draw on the deck.
So we see the first of 2 Lux Penumbras come down. You can pay 5 health to give your other Radiants and units in your deck +1/+1, but they're going to need all their health points right now. Might see Nesting Aviasaur chump this turn. The Flyers are only getting bigger from here, Patrick.
Surprised to not see the Defile there. Oh, excuse me. Never mind.
Nesting Aviasaur is a little too big for
a
Defile.
little too big. I was about to say.
Yeah. 4 cost unit, and Defile only hits 3 or less. A second Iadria in hand and a Defile. Brantar is debating if it's better to have up Defile or get down the Iadria. They're at 41, and Lights Out Ace is only at 6. I guess the argument is that you're kind of locked up on the ground already. All right, so now we see Unstable Forms. Are there some very, very powerful 10 drops that Lights Out Ace could turn these Radiants into? Well, they're going to start off by hitting Champion of Cunning, so that wasn't their initial plan. And I guess they're just trying to get to another turn They turned it into a Majestic Mandrake, and I don't think they have enough to survive the next attack. But we'll see.
I mean, they can chomp and
Yeah.
go to 1.
So they go to
next turn is next turn, I guess.
Who knows what might the next turn might bring. If you look at Lights Out Aces deck, I believe it's a pretty light list in terms of action. It's a lot of ways to go into the market to try to assemble that combo of Nesting Aviasaur plus Eclipse.
Yeah.
Torgov's Wares. Alright. Draw 2, gain 2 health. Aramat's Designs, well, that does not kill all the flyers. Needs to kill all the flyers. And that'll do it. Looks like Brantar takes down Lights Out Ace 2-0. So Lights Out Ace bringing a little bit of a wacky combo deck this weekend for us. And, you know, that's something we see from time to time. Players taking advantage of the market mechanic to try to build out some kind of 2 or 3 card combo, and then their first couple turns of the game is just get those pieces out of the market, and you play enough merchants and smugglers, you'll be able to do it. Downside is something like an obstructive flicker could blow all that up with just 1 card for 1 power.
Yeah, and I do like it. You know, if people are on these, you know, Combrei, Rakana style decks that are all about accruing these incremental advantages and sort of playing to the board, one of the stronger ways to beat that is just, I'm just going to mark it. I'm not going to, you know, futz around with playing this game on the table. I'm going to do something really, really strong that's on this different avenue. But when you're playing against Obstructive Flicker and Exploit and all the interactions in available and found, that combo path is much harder to pull off.
All right, sounds like we got all the matches in the round done. Is that right, Tom? All right. So we're going to head to a break now, get an interview going, and we will be back with the start of round 2 in just a few minutes. Good morning and welcome. This morning I am joined by Jan, who is the Draft Open champion from our Journey of the Six 5K Draft Open. And we're going to be talking to them today and getting a chance to get to know them and learn about how they qualified for the World Championships. So starting off, Jan, can you tell us where you're from and a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I'm 36. I'm from Finland, like central part of Finland. The city is called Jyväskylä, where I live. And for the work, I work in the child protection in a foster care home. And hobbies, I think I could say maybe board games, and I do downhill skiing and other outdoor activities probably, but those are probably the main things in my life.
Wow, that's it's quite a bit different part of the world from where we're at, except for the downhill skiing part. Direwolf Digital is in Denver, so we're nice to some pretty good skiing ourselves here.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So let's just start by first off your username. Maybe not the most elaborate story, but where does that username hail from?
It's just the initials from my first name and my last name, and in Finnish it actually means thirst. So one of my hobbies is also beer tasting, I guess. So I'm thirsty guy. So it kind of fits well.
Well, more things that are common to Denver. Lots of good craft brewery out here. So if you're ever out here, I'll give you some tips.
Okay, cool.
And so you mentioned you come from a gaming background. How long have you been playing Eternal? Do you remember the first card that jumped out to you when you've maybe first encountered the game?
Yes, I do remember it quite well. So as probably most of the Eternal players, I come from Magic. So it was in a group chat with some friends that someone said that there is a new game called Eternal. And so I checked it out, and it was, I think, December of, I don't remember the year, but it was like in the closed beta. So there was first card that I saw, it was Wump, the party starter, and I was right away like laughing, like there is Yetis and stuff like this. So it was right away, it was a hit for me. So I never looked back after that.
That's pretty cool. Wump was our first ever promo card, and it's when we get to talking about your run in the draft open, it's kind of serendipitous that your first card you ever really encountered was Wump, because you had a very
Yeah,
Wump themed deck, I would say, for your
yeah,
finals run.
that's true.
So yeah, so why maybe let's get right into that draft open then, and I guess we could start with that last deck. So I'll start. Of course, myself and Patrick, we were doing the commentary for that, and I believe the first time that we watched one of your games might have been top 8, maybe top 16. And when we saw your deck, it was like, whoa, we had been watching mostly slower decks that were trying to go over the top with unleashed cards, like 3 faction decks. And then we saw you, and I think you're one of the first draws we saw. You just had multiple Grenadin rescues, and you just overran your opponent. And so you drafted a very aggressive Skycrag deck. Can you talk about what the process was like of drafting that deck?
Uh, I was doing some drafts and I was also watching streams before the tournament. And I was thinking that a lot of people seem to be really into doing this really grindy and slow decks. And my gut feeling was that if I go really fast, or if I can have a deck that is like super, super fast, then I might have a chance to win before those decks kind of start to work, or even like push the last few damage in if I'm in that position. So that was my plan for the open, and it kind of worked. So I'm happy with that.
So yeah, so for qualifying for the open, did you draft a Skycrag deck there as well?
No, it was a Praxis deck, but all in all, I think like red was the aggro color for this draft. So I wanted to be red with something else, and blue was probably the best color in this format, at least in my opinion. So I wanted to be Skycrag, but in the qualification, I didn't get so many blue cards, so I had to be Praxis. I think I had a splash of Brigade Hall, like just one card, but I had multiple Sig powers, so it was feeling kind of free.
Yeah, and so when you get to the top 64 draft, that Sunday draft, do you recall the card that you opened first for that draft?
Yes, I picked, I don't remember the name, but it's the 2/1 time flyer endurance that gives 1 more power.
Yep,
Maximum
Endangered
power.
Kieran. Didn't see that one in
Yeah,
your final deck.
no, it's like I think the second pick was something red or blue, and from there on, it went like all the good Skycrag cards came to me, and I was like, okay, this is better than I expected from the first pick.
So one of the cards that was pretty impressive in the games that we saw was Scaly Gron, and you drafted 4 copies. Did you actually play all 4 copies of that one? And how did you kind of get to the point where you felt like that card was a good fit for this format and aggressive strategies?
Um, it was just I was playing all 4, yes, and it was in the testing that I did, and all my friends did. Everyone was saying that this is surprisingly good card for this format, like a lot of 3/1 units and other units with just 1 toughness. So it kind of blocks everything, and it's easy to attack with that. It's two power is like not a lot, so you can just put it down and start attacking for 1 or block pretty much everything in the early game. So I liked the card, and I was happy to get all 4.
Welcome back, everybody. We are here now with the top 64, Andrew Beckstrom, Patrick Sullivan. Through our first round, we got to see Creation kind of get stomped by Cassandrith, and saw Feln doing well. Direwood Pack is a card we haven't talked about yet from Enter the Arcanum, but it's one of the more popular of the new cards that we will be seeing this weekend. For Primal Shadow, Aegis Deadly and Inscribe, so pretty nice that you're getting that Inscribe deal on a multi-faction unit. It's a 3/3 wolf, and whenever another unit dies, it gets +1/+1. So it's this real growing threat for Feln decks, but also something which really helps you if you're up against something big by being an Aegis Deadly unit.
Yeah, no, I mean, it kind of cuts in all the directions, right? Again, you mentioned multi-faction plus Inscribe, so very little cost of putting this in your deck if you're already playing Feln. And then it has the ability to play kind of big against some of the unit-based decks. It's something that you can play, and then if you get a little bit of breathing space, can grow. And then if you're playing against a deck that's a little bit slower, more removal-oriented, then again, an Aegis growing unit can be pretty effective there if you're playing with your own units.
Yeah, it seems like a nice choice against the Creation decks because they're frequently going wide, trying to play a bunch of units to take advantage of that +1/+1 bonus to all of their units. You know, you see things like Dinosaur Nest. But also within Feln, since it does key off of your own units dying, you pair it with something like Mother of Skies, and then you're getting to get the benefit of these like 1/2 Cloud Snakes that, you know, you're great with them if they can be threatening to attack, but also if they're chumping and growing your Direwood Pack, that's nice too.
Yeah, a lot of these games are going to come down to, you know, the Creation player has more stuff. They can A space bar into you. You can get in some damage that way. You have enough cards to play with where even if you lose an attacker or two, it's not the end of the world. How profitable are those attacks? And anything that makes those attacks less profitable is really, really important. A growing unit certainly qualifies. Moonstone Vanguard absolutely qualifies as one of those things. So those are really important units to keep an eye out for. It may seem innocuous, but a lot of those games are going to come down to how treacherous am I making it for my opponent just to send in all their extras and try to whittle me down? And any unit that can both block and be accumulating some other advantage through that process is going to be really, really strong.
All right, so we'll be checking out our next match here in just a few minutes. As soon as they get started, we'll be heading down. It's, we got 64, so there's 32 matches out in the field. Maybe we'll get to see a couple of them. That first round was pretty fast. It does seem like the advent of Creation, the Creation project has been harder for control decks. There's still some good amount of control in the field. Combray still showing up, a couple of different takes on the Huru archetype, but certainly a big new challenge for them to adapt to.
Definitely, and it's not just about being the relic, too. I mean, a 3-faction deck that's aggressive, that has access to their market for a clutch card, that's going to be hard on a control deck regardless. And, you know, once you're pairing that with a relic as strong in terms of advancing your clock while also providing card advantage, it's going to take the pure control decks a little bit while to adapt to that sort of thing.
All right, here for round number 2, we got Talking Llama at the bottom of your screen, bringing up with that Xenon mid-range deck, oftentimes going very heavy on time influence to support things like Zuma-Khan, the Surveyor, and All Head Ascending. Up at the top, probably another Creation project deck, Alessi Combray Archmage getting things kicked off. Got a couple of just one-cost spells, one-cost units and spells, and we'll see kind of how hard they can go here with them. See, Alessi into Abundance, so they're going to get a 2-drop and get to buff up both of the Alessis here. And they're not going to attack into the All Head, so hoping that they can get some more action that will help grow the Alessis further. But yeah, this is, you mentioned optimizing your deck for something like having the Creation project, lots of cheap cards you want to warp. When you don't have it, this can be the result. Oh, so Doc20. So some people are also playing Primal in their deck for some nice new cards there.
So this is interesting here. I mean, this attack definitely signals some way to pump the Alessi. Again, players have access to deck lists, so Talking Llama can go check it out. But with a banish up, you might say, okay, well, I can block here, and worst comes to worst, I can banish if there's some sort of spell they can play.
So they banished first, and that sort of gives the game up that there's a fast spell because they could see that there was no sort of response from Doc28. So both the Alessis are down. We'll see a pair of Borderlands lookouts. Certainly a risky moment there from Doc 28, giving away, using that banish. Exploit is going to see no non-power cards in hand, but it'll still get to plunder. But yeah, anytime you give up that banish on something that isn't a creation project, it can be a little scary.
Yeah, at that point, if you're in Talking Llama's position, you're thinking, well, my Moonstone Vanguard should be sufficient. Maybe even if that gets going. You also might have seen it pre-combat in that event because the +1/+1 would have been valuable in that combat step. So it's risky, but I think there was enough signal there that, you were probably safe then.
So Talking Llama's getting beat up here. They don't play anything on that turn. And now they draw Seed of Mystery. So time power, but of the depleted variety. They're going to exploit. And they'll see a Diplomatic Seal once again. They'll just play out. And now an Aurelian Supplier off the top for Doc 28. A perfect draw. Gives them another 2/2 charging threat and draws 2 more cards. That hits Power Cell and Dinosaur Nest. And I think we might see them both get played.
Yeah, no reason not to empty it out at this point unless you're worried about not having action if you draw a Merchant. And actually, it looks like that's going to be the tiebreaker here.
Be curious to see if End of an Era is in Talking Llama's market this weekend. That's one of the best reasons to be to have access to a Xenon market against these creation decks. All right, so Doc 28 can attack with everything. They would push some damage. Moonstone Vanguard would eat something and they would gain 5 health. Or we could see a little bit of a sit back.
Yeah, it's a little rough. The damage that you would push through there would be a total of 1, assuming that the Vanguard went on a 2-strength unit, and that might just not be enough to make that attack rate.
So we are going to see them go into the market now by exhausting the Timekeeper, and they got End of an Era. So wow, they are really being very patient with it, Patrick, because they could have played it that turn, but now they're even better set up the turn after it sort of fires off.
Yeah, I mean you're looking at taking some lumps this turn, but again the Vanguard's going to pick up 5, so we're not looking at lethal, and then End of an Era is going to mop up here. The leftovers here from Talking Llama will be quite good.
All right, Talking Llama drops down to 4, but End of an Era kills each unit and relic that costs 3 or less. And if you can kill enough cards, you get to get a Gizo's Office. 7 cost sight, gives all your units lifesteal.
Just got to get out of this turn.
Yeah.
Because next turn that gain of 10 is going to be way too much.
Yeah, and Dinosaur Nest not going to be enough here. So, Gizo's Office, given all the units lifesteal. Are they going to scheme? Are they going to threaten one of their units? Or are they just going to win? Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
The threaten's nice.
It's my favorite mode.
Combined with the fact that your units have lifesteal, you like for your units with lifesteal to have more strength, you get a bonus in both directions there.
Emergent synergies, my favorite thing.
Is that one emergent when we put them both on the same card?
Yeah, because you still need a unit.
Oh, okay.
And your unit still has to be able to attack. They can't always attack.
Yeah.
That game they could attack because, Doc had nothing. But
yeah.
No, it's still emergent. I think that qualifies as emergent. What? Go to the let's go to the forums here. Is plus 2 strength plus? It's also not the same card because the threaten has to resolve. It's not like Diesel's Office says your units have lifesteal and +2 attack. Like, you still have to click. It still has to resolve. You still have to be able to attack.
Well, what it is it's a little it makes the threaten more potent than it otherwise would be when you have options like cut ties, just kill a unit, or scheme, draw a card from the top 4 cards of your deck of your choice. It gives you a little extra incentive to go down that route of buffing something up on the board.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're drawing a card off the Vanguard anyway, so it sort of diminishes the need to scheme right away. So that is an emergent synergy. Moonstone Vanguard getting +2 strength there is really appealing when you're trying to just pull up enough health there to be out of range of whatever. And you're less in need of cards because the Vanguard is coming up with that. And then the following turn you can scheme. Now you have your 7 strength life steal unit, and like that changes the texture of your scheme. That's an emergent synergy. Your opponent plays something big enough to block something. I got a cut ties rolled up too. That's an emergent synergy. You can't be too picky. I just don't. I don't think we can grade that harshly. You know.
The synergy of an effect that does something is good with scheme because it gives it a new context is
true. Unassailable.
Yeah. So you see Doc 28. They got Lethrai Marauder. That's that Primal 2-drop, and that's why they've got some accelerated evolution action. So this is kind of combining the TJP sort of spell archetype with the creation deck, whereas we've seen other decks kind of going down a little bit more of a go wide aggro route. There's Power Cell. That's another spell. So a lot of popping off if they can find an Alessi this game. But Talking Llama is going to have something to say about this hand as they're going to go for an exploit here. And I mean, the Lethrai Marauder looks to me to be the most potent card in the hand. Yeah, that one's going away. And now they'll plunder, and they turn their other exploit into a Shadow Sigil.
Really, I really like that sequencing a lot because if you had all of the echo triggers happening at the start of the game, you have a good sense of what Doc's hand is, and if you take out their key piece, it's very likely their leftovers just don't amount to very much. So it's normal in that spot to just say, well, I'm going to play my Alessi and whatever. But I think that taking a turn off to make sure you get whatever the key part of that hand is that kind of pulls it all together is worth taking the turn off. And also, if your opponent has all these copies of Accelerated Evolution, you're not going to get to block anyway, most likely, because that Power Cell is just going to get flying. So not the most intuitive play from Talking Llama, but I think that's really sharp.
So Accelerated Evolution number 2 is going to go on to this Borderlands Lookout. Looks like it's they're going to be trying to develop 2 pretty good-sized flying threats that they can just keep pushing through this game. That's looks like it did work, and so yeah, coming across for 6. Will we see Talking Llama fire off Banish or send an agent? So they're going to fire off Send an Agent. We're going to see Pause for Reflection, bounce the Borderlands Lookout back to the hand. Power Cell gets through, and then with the Zoltan Conclave, you can go ahead and get the Borderlands Lookout back down. No 4th power for Talking Llama. They would love to get down Sandstorm Titan, but with a Banish in hand, they could start picking through these units anyway. Playing out Rip Knife Assassin. Man, these Aurelian suppliers coming off the top when players need them right now.
Yeah, it's a big draw. You find undepleted power. Now you're looking at, 9 in the air. Still not a bad consolation prize. But Sandstorm Titan here is still looking quite good.
It is. All right, so there's another exploit. So this is going to unlock power number 4 after taking Aurelian Supplier. And they're going to get down an all-head ascending, but yeah, no blocks with this. So Doc 28 finding a dinosaur nest, but they're going to accelerate evolution. Borderlands Lookouts up to 4. Will we see it once again get played? We are. It's down to 5. The good news for Talking Llama is that this isn't a sort of one-turn clock, as both threats would need to get through to have lethal. Dinosaur Nest plus Alessi. Or no, we're going to hold on to the Alessi, hoping to combine in the same turn with a spell.
Or just, it's unlikely the Alessi matters very much, and Doc wants to make sure if they draw a way to get into the market that they have a card left over. Because this game is really just hubbed around the Sandstorm Titan right now. If it dies, that's the end of the game, and Doc can really make no progress while it's still here. So you want to make sure you have the material left over to get it off, finish off this game if you happen to draw a way to get to your market.
things are feeling uncomfortable for Doc right now. They know that Aurelian Merchant went into the market. Pretty good chance it went for an end of an era again. I think you're going to see that one gotten pretty reliably. And if we're seeing a sort of a chump attack here from Doc 28, that's a pretty strong indication that they know what might be happening next turn for Talking Llama.
I don't know if I would. It's still a rough attack to make here because, Talking Llama's been missing power. You can assume pretty safely that their hand is all action. And if you make this attack, they're no longer forced to play end of an era. You really can't even. It's hard to even keep them off the Dezo's office element of it because your dinosaur nest is going to keep cranking out dinosaurs. So I don't know if that attack amounted to very much, but looks like it washed out all the same.
All right, so end of an era takes out all those cheap units, including the Aurelian Merchant for Talking Llama, and now Alessi's and is going to have to be on comeback duty here. Sandstorm Titan with that great 5/6 endurance body is going to just be slowly bringing Doc down. Now a Twin Spiteling and a Timekeeper. Who we're painting off the top for Doc. They are running out of time here. This is going to be over in just 2 turns. With a Banish in hand for Talking Llama.
This is about as covered as it can get. Could even Rumors away a spell if you're worrying about some outlier here. I'm sure Talking Llama just taking a look at Doc's deck list here. Is there anything that I would want to Rumors away?
All right, there's Praxis painting. And that is just way too much power for Doc to deal with. So, you kind of mentioned earlier this idea of when you're playing a creation project deck of, wanting to have some kind of backup plan. What's the thing that's going on? In this case, it's that sort of TJP Accelerated Evolution deck. And against the Xena deck with Exploits, Send an Agent's Banish, it just wasn't enough action to take down the Xena deck.
And I do appreciate the logic of wanting to play with Accelerated Evolution. We've watched these time decks. They're the time control decks, they're not that great against units with flying. And it's not like Accelerated Evolution is a bad card anyway when you're playing with Alessi and ways to access your market. Like, you just play that card, it's fine. And if you're trying to beat these Moonstone Vanguards and these World Bear Behemoths, then it makes a lot of sense to want to have that as a card that you're splashing. Unfortunately, Sandstorm Titan is just still what it is. I don't know if it's in Cassunder's deck. We didn't see it in the match in question. But here, Sandstorm Titan made that Accelerated Evolution just not really a factor other than the extra damage that it got in. And then we saw Doc draw a little bit too much power for what the deck's trying to do. And, Twin Spiteling, End of an Era, these are not cards you can have played against you that many times before you're just kind of out of stuff to do.
Yeah, the Sandstorm Titan thing is certainly not a clear consensus. Sometimes you'll see deck lists and they'll have 0 in these Xenon lists. Sometimes they're just on 4, and I always love when you get those 0-4 splits within an archetype because it just sort of means some people are like this card's the nuts, and then other people are like
not for me.
I would never.
Never.
All right, GT100. I think they've got an FJP deck with Catalyze, but maybe just straight Skycrag. We'll see. Popetito, bottom of your screen. This is one of those Xenon Void related decks. So we see Darkwater Vines. We see Katra the First Seal. She has her stats -1/-1 since we last saw her in a tournament. But regen units can do a decent job of holding off, keeping Plunk at bay. So we see the Torch before the attack. Plunk gets in, uses that ability, takes on 2 dead, but draws a card.
And Plunk is not the card you want to see from a random air deck. Not that they don't have answers, and you see blockers and you see Vara, Vengeance Seeker, but in terms of playing that game where I'm applying pressure, but I can actually kind of keep up with your more powerful plays, Plunk might be best in class at playing that sort of game. And so Not a card that we've seen a lot of so far. Maybe not the ideal metagame call if you're trying to play against these creation decks because, they're going to be well situated against Plunk at a baseline. But you play against Reanimator, and maybe the best card you can have if you're trying to play an aggressive game.
All right, so Darkwater Vine's going to do some discarding. Hits Twisted Farmer. But nothing more exciting than that. And now we'll see Fear knocking some cards off the top of the deck. Hits a Plunk. So GT100 could take 2 dead and draw a card. Plunk's got that nifty second ability when it gets discarded by an enemy.
But Popotito's gotten through the worst of it. That Plunk was pretty scary, but they got their vines. They were actually able to execute the, all the discard there. 5 cards in hand against 5 cards in hand, 4 power versus 4 power. Could have been a lot worse.
So no initial plays there from Popotito. Looks like we might see a Banish or an Ebon Dune Smuggler. And there's Catalyze for GT100. We're going to play Torque Ballistics Crafter, contract it, get a Snowball, and just an immediate Banish from Popotito. So trying to keep the board relatively clear of these additional spell damage effects, which combined with the double damage that Catalyze might grant, and you might get a very bursty kill. Now we'll see Last Chance into Popotito's Void. They're going to grab the Twisted Farmer. And it looks like Popotito's really trying to pop off here, Patrick, with Katra the First Seal.
Yeah, you can Twisted Farmer, amplify for a ton, and then play Katra, get all that power out of your Void back in. And now you're well set up. You have a Smuggler to go get something big. You have a Tazbu to keep grinding. So the signal's pretty loud in terms of what's about to happen here. There's really no reason to get this card unless you're setting up Katra, but unless GT had some way to mark it for a cheap piece of interaction, there's nothing to be done about it.
There we go. There's Katra the First Seal. So you can play up to 4 power cards from the Void. Not sure how many Popotito's thrown in there, and it looks like it is a full foursome. So that's pretty exciting. Gets Katra, wow, look at this, all the way up to a 12-10. We'll see the Twisted Farmer and those units attack. GT100 has a double damage Elemental Fury in hand, but that won't even be big enough. Oh, actually, with the Howling Peak Smuggler giving +1 spell damage.
That's the 10 ball.
It's exactly 10. So yeah, we will see double damage, deal 5 to each unit and site. And then trying to gear up for a Helio on a subsequent turn. Skycrate Blueprints. Combines quite nicely with Helio. Transforms the unit into something that costs 2 more. Alright. So another Twisted Farmer. That's going to be pretty exciting with Tazbu the Forbidden.
How does that work?
So Twisted Farmer, you can amplify, get these extra Mandrakes, and then whenever one of your units dies with Tazbu the Forbidden out, you get to take 1 damage and draw a card. The draw a card is the more exciting part than the take 1 damage part.
Right.
But yeah, all these, we'll see a big flurry of Mandrakes here. Unless, maybe Popotito's gotten second thoughts and wants to Ebon Dune Smuggler for something more immediately useful. That is the gamesmanship here. Popotito's probably got a good sense that there is a Helio coming, so maybe they have something in their market that could disrupt that card, and that would be pretty good for right now. But we're going to see Twisted Farmer. Here come the Sapsuckers. Amplified a full 7 times. So now 8 units for Popotito.
Whoa! Back up.
Popotito's like, wait, do I want to get Tazbu down? Because if you attack and the Howling Peak Smuggler blocks 1 down, that's just 1 less card you're drawing. It's always a question of how much drawing cards is too much and how much taking damage is too much. And how much does Popotito want to commit here? They're going to start off by playing Bara. All right, so Treasure Trove now from Popotito. So Popotito has rethought it. They are not playing Tazbu.
Yeah, interesting. Because GT100 went and got Dazzle, decided has not done anything with it just yet, and it looks like Popotito's perspective is just Smuggler end of turn is actually a better and safer play than playing the Tazbu right now.
And GT100 not going to play Helio, playing an Ice Bolt on Vara. So more power here now for Popotito. They've got Dazzle. I've been doing Smuggler is great here. That's going to allow Popotito to put in a lethal attack, or have a good shot at putting a lethal attack onto that site. There's Krogar, Burdened Hero, so 5 cost 5/5. You can silence a unit with 3 strength or less, and you gain 5 health. Alright, so both units looking to attack potentially on the site. GT100 can actually keep the site around. If they were to block one of those units and dazzle the other, that would work, but that's a pretty low value use of dazzle otherwise, and so they're going to hold on to it.
And the site also just doesn't have a ton left to do. So it's like, even if you got to the finish line somehow, it wouldn't be very valuable.
Yeah, the resurface from Garden of Omens is one of the cheeky combos with Catalyze. It's one of the ways to ensure you're going to have something on the top of your deck that's actively very good there. They hit Torch and Soulfire, so now they have a double damage Soulfire. They're going to play Helio this turn, and
that's a lot of damage.
Yeah, so each one of, if that Soulfire, that's a 3-cost spell, deals 3 damage. It has Unleash, and now because of double damage, it's going to be dealing 6. And look at that, Popotito going face.
Well, I mean, the Soulfire could potentially, roll it up the next turn in theory, or close to it.
Oh, now we here see the newest chapter card, Rapid Development. Give your units plus strength and health this turn equal to the highest health among your units. Yeah, that pushes way over the finish line.
I do like that play a lot from GT, though. Unfortunately, not in a win, but were you at 33? All right, I'll torch you. Your turn. And it's like, oh, no, next turn.
Yeah.
I mean, they had 24 coming, or, sorry.
Just
18.
Yeah, but it didn't seem necessarily. Now there was other cards in hand. There was the Kenna. There was a Garden of Omens. So maybe there was something in the works that GT100 could set up. But it didn't feel on the surface. It seemed like we could just go straight to the burn them out plan.
Well, I think it's one of those things where it's possible it goes that way, and even in the event that something happens where you have to then pivot to interacting, well, the Soulfire can clean up a lot the next turn. It's not, and GT is going to be really tight on power regardless. So it's a little, I'm not sure if it's necessarily right. I would have to see the list to see exactly what they could set up, but it's not unreasonable given what their hand was and kind of like what the state of affairs was.
All right, so now we've got Portage here up against a Skycrag aggro deck. So this one's going to be now torching the Vine Grafter, which just picked up what looks like a Grasping at Shadows. So big things on the way there. But look at that Prowling Armor just getting very nicely buffed up thanks to the Tandem attack. And so this is kind of the different case, a new world we're going to be seeing here, because in the past, the Grasping at Shadows in this spot from a Xenon deck that had gone on for a number of turns was just game over on the spot. And they have a Zyndo revealed. It's going to bring along a couple of 1/1 deadly blockers. That's great, but that won't necessarily be enough to win the game here. Now, Renegade has not exactly been hitting their power drops, Patrick. Just constrained to 3 this play for this turn. They can play that and the Oni Ronin. Portage picking up a Shadow Etchings. That could be very big if there's something like an End of an Era in the market, though these those Grenadin Wolves do have Aegis.
They're Grenadin Wolves.
Prowling Amarok might not be a I have to look.
I don't know, but that's the first I heard about it. I guess it's possible. Now I'm curious.
It's been a minute since we were on Bastion. There was funny stuff going on there. Yeah, it's a Grenadin Wolf. Yeah,
Oh
you
my-
gotta look close, but it's a robot.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, here we go. Now
What
we're
happened?
talking.
Oh, the timepiece.
Yeah. That's a good. So the way that works is that's 11,
Yeah,
and
Lifesteal's good.
yeah, Lifesteal's good here.
This is just very fair Eternal rates going on right now. And
Put a unit weapon on a unit. What more do you want?
now Portage can attack with that Halisi, and it would have gotten a free champion of Fury. So as a reminder, with a Zindel, whenever one of your units hits the enemy player, steal the top card of the deck and reduce its cost by 2. Alright, so Champion of Fury and Oni Ronin coming in, buffing up the Prowling Amarok, but that is it for this turn, and yeah, a Zindel.
11.
11 for me, minus 11 for you. Hitting a Battlefront Dasher. Now there's a Bren's Insight. Looking at the top of the deck for a unit of Relic. They got a Tazbu. So they can Sabretooth Pride Leader this turn and then maybe Battlefront Dasher up the Tazbu.
I don't think we're gonna get that far.
I think you're right.
I think it's just gonna be 11. Yeah, just let them know they weren't close.
All right, Sabretooth Pride Leader getting it done as always. And yep, well, we could attack with lots of things, though. A Zendel in the air will be enough, as Portage is going to advance to our top 32 here, taking down Renegade, as we see another one picked up by Xenon. So lots of varieties of Xenon doing well this weekend, and yeah, it's not a shocker. Is certainly if you are in the market for a faction combination, which can do quite nicely against Relics, getting to play Sabretooth Pride Leader, Banish, Send an Agent doesn't kill Creation Project, but still a great card overall, and yeah, been doing very nicely.
Yeah, I mean, you combine, if you're looking to fight against a deck that's a bunch of small units and relics, you really can't do much better than Zenin. You have a plethora of very good, interactive, large units, variety of ways to handle relics, and we've seen End of an Era be incredible here. Passage of Aeons, just a lot of just very strong targets in the market to break up their synergies.
Was that it for the round there, Tom? All right, and so can't recall the last time we saw Champion of Fury being one of the last cards be played in our top 64 round. Usually it's a bit of a slower matchup that gets the round done, but that'll do it for our top 64. We'll be back with the top 32. More action on the way. When you got to the finals, you ended up having to face off against a Skycraig Mirror, and it was a pretty exciting match. Were there any things that you felt like you did particularly well to win that sort of a mirror setup?
I was thinking that his deck might have been actually a little bit better than mine. Like he had a lot of powerful cards, and mine was more like synergy and trying to be fast. And if I don't do that, then I will probably lose. But I don't really remember those games so well. I remember just one play from, I think it was game 3 in the finals. Like I had a warning shot and Wind Screamer, or what was the name of the card. And I was thinking that I don't want to lose Wind Screamer to Trick Throw. So I was thinking that it's 3 damage, so I need to grow my Wind Screamer right away to be a 2/4 so that he cannot shoot it. I don't know how I got this feeling that he's holding Trick Throw, but I just had a feeling. And after that, I was watching the games and I was like, oh my, he actually did have the trick throw, and I kind of played around it. But yeah, it was a bit weird play. I don't know if it was correct, but in the end, it won me the game, I think, at least. So it worked out.
That skill of being able to trust your intuition, that's a really difficult skill to master and something to utilize. Is that something you find yourself doing a lot, or was it just something about this circumstance that led you to, like, you know what, I'm going to just go with my gut here?
Yeah, that's probably me. Like, I don't usually go like I'm not someone who thinks like all the possible scenarios, like what is the correct play. Usually I just have the instinct like this is what I'm going to do. So I can think through, but usually I go back to the same first instinct anyway. So usually I just go with it, and I usually play kind of fast. So yeah, I usually go with my gut feeling.
It's a great thing to do. I also similarly, when I used to play card games competitively, used to really rely on my instincts. And when I first started getting deeper into tournaments, it was something that kind of worked against me, because the nerves and the pressure of the moment were causing my instincts to get kind of screwed up, and then I'm listening to them and they were making me do some bad plays. So good on you for acting cool under pressure. Was this like the highest stakes match you had ever played? Had you had similar deep runs in tournaments before?
I'm fairly sure that this was the highest stakes that I've done. Like in Magic, I was playing only Legacy, so there's not many big tournaments. I went to like GPs in Europe, and also some larger events here in Finland, but I didn't do so well, like not winning the big ones. Like I have won like a smaller tournaments, like 50 people or something, but nothing like this. So yeah, it was by far the highest stakes.
So you mentioned in your preparation, you came to this conclusion that that aggressive strategies might be really well positioned with how other players were drafting the format. Were there any other things that you noticed in your preparation that you were doing with maybe your pick orders or your preferences that were maybe against the conventional wisdom?
No, not really. Like only the thing that I wanted to be blue and Skycrack or Elysian, or then if everything goes wrong, then Praxis. So that was my kind of pick order that I wanted to do. But actually, I didn't do so much of preparations, like just maybe 10 drafts and watching streams and some of my friends playing. So that was all. Like, not actually, I was not supposed to even play this tournament. Like, it was just a I don't know how to explain it. It's a funny story.
Well, it worked out, and you'll be competing in our next World Championships. So, congratulations again on that. As far as, do you think that you will play in upcoming events, or do, or are you just going to be focused on the World Championships at this point?
Probably will be playing like all the events that I can. Like usually I'm a lot working during the weekend, so this is a bit hard. Like I was also at work during this event, but it was quiet night at work, so I get to play. And luckily, some of the other players took a lot of time, so I had time to do the things that I needed to do at work. So when I came back, it was like, the games are still going, so I have time to play my rounds.
Yeah. As far as your work, you mentioned that you work in foster care and child protective services. Could you tell us, is there anything more you can tell us about that? I mean, it's always interesting hearing where Eternal players come from, and we get players when we do these interviews that are from so many different parts of the world, so many different walks of life, and I don't think we've ever heard of a story quite like yours before.
Yes, so it's like a foster care home for kids who can't live at their home. So we have a place for maximum of 14 kids. I don't remember how many we have now because I'm on holiday, but around 10 kids maybe, let's say, that we have now. So usually I do the night shift. So for the tournaments, it's kind of good because there is usually the kids are sleeping, so I can sometimes play if there's nothing else to do. So this time I was not supposed to take part in the tournament at all, but just it was a bit like a boring night, like nothing happening. So I was like, okay, I just do my qualification run, and I was not expecting to do well or anything. So I was a bit surprised to do so well. And then in the top 64, I really had to dodge some situations like that I already kind of gave up, that there was some things that I had to do. And I just finished my round and I had to go somewhere. And I was like, when I come back, this next round will be over and I'm just disqualified from the tournament. But actually, I think it was round 2 or something that some players were taking like so much time for the game. So I had time to come back and I was like, whoa, this must be my lucky day that this kind of stuff happened. So yeah, it was weird.
Hey, it seems like I sounds like you needed a little bit of luck to get there, but that's kind of true. I've seen with almost every tournament success story is you've
Yeah,
got to both play well, but you also need a little bit of luck on your side. And so turns out in this case it was both. It was maybe a little bit of luck outside the games.
yeah, that's true.
Well, that's awesome. Really appreciate the work that you're doing there. As somebody with an adopted sister, extra thanks for me because there's a lot of great kids out there that just need a little bit
Yeah.
of help. So, really wonderful to hear that. All right, welcome back. It's now time for our top 32 here at the Throne Open. So far in the first couple of rounds, we've had a lot of pretty fast-moving games. As these decks are quite capable of overwhelming their opponents right out of the gates. You've seen that with these Alessis getting grown, but the way that people have been coming back, especially with the Xenon decks, just seems like they have a lot of great answers, and so that initial just like, oh, I'm gonna have like a bunch of like 3-3s and 4-4s maybe isn't enough to get it done in the games this weekend.
Right. I mean, historically, the type of thing you want to be doing against the Zen and mid-range stuff is just play with Wisdom of the Elders and Harsh Rule. And if those decks are really off the table right now, because of the new cards that have been printed and because, navigating a pure control deck against some of this stuff is very challenging, then Zen might have an opportunity to really dominate. And we've seen it thus far.
All right. So up next for us in this round, we're going to be checking out two players we haven't seen yet. Is there a deck that you've seen so far that you would have particularly liked to play?
That I've seen so far.
Yeah, I want to check out that Skycrag deck some more.
Yeah, Skycrag.
That one looks pretty sweet. All right, so getting us going here now, Jabusari. So maybe another matchup between Creation and Xenon. So we're kind of seeing maybe some two polar ends of the format starting to emerge. They've got a Brody Bastion's Hope on turn 1. It's a 1-cost 0/3. When it attacks, your attacking units deal damage equal to their health this turn, and your units with 0 or less strength can attack. So kind of like a 1-cost 3/3, but gives some nice upside with other units that have higher health than strength typically.
So now seeing this hand with 3 dinosaur nests, be interesting to see how they want to navigate. That was interesting. I was kind of expecting the Owlhead to be turned into a time sigil there, just to sort of, because there's a pretty clear path here towards exploiting and dismantling the nests and then having Moonstone Vanguard as leftover. I don't know how valuable the Owlhead is here, but it's possible they just wanted to defer the decision on plundering one turn to see what the draw step was.
So now we're going to see another exploit. It's going to hit the Creation Project, and with a Dismantle in hand, they can take out the nest. So Mystic Knight very effectively answering the early plays here from Jabusari. They're going to attack with Brody once again. And so dropping Mystic Knight down to 19, a Dinosaur Nest, but good chance Mystic Knight's going to be able to stabilize. And wow, if they fire off an Eavesdrop here, Patrick, we're going to get the last 2 cards in Jabusari's hand.
That is brutal here for Jabusari, because their curve, I don't know if it would have been good enough against Moonstone Vanguard, but it was at least pretty rolled up and pretty aggressive. And now they're just down to nothing.
Yeah, so they've got the health advantage. They've dropped Mystic Knight down to 16. Mystic Knight bricked on power number 5, so we're just going to see an all-head for this turn. That could trade off with the Brody if it were to attack again. Might be a good play, as it'll keep things less complicated on the ground for the dinosaurs. But Mystic Knight's going to hold off on that block. And now they top deck a Xenon Tomb. That's going to allow the Moonstone Vanguard to emerge. And this 5/5 has been a real issue for players. Jabusari's got a Creation Chant now. And this card, you can decimate it if you've got enough Fire Time and Justice influence. It allows you to invoke Fire Time and Justice. And so they're going to be digging for an answer, some kind of removal or evasion. And instead, they just get a Baying Ceratosaur, which...
It's a dinosaur. You got a nest about to pop
Oh,
off.
all right. Good points, Patrick. It
I
also
don't
is
mind
going to make
that.
it Nightfall, so maybe some answers on the way.
Don't mind that. That's a point of damage from Nightfall.
Didn't play out the power, and Mystic Knight didn't hit anything there.
Baying Ceratosaur. Live balance beneficiary. And now ready to just crack in. It's actually like quite good here.
Yeah. I mean, it works very nicely with Nightfall. And just Mystic Knight just hitting power after power. Jabusari finding Aurelian Supplier and Creation Chant. Right now they don't have fewer cards in hand, so that Aurelian Supplier is not going to draw anything extra. But
we're not Creation Chanting here. You don't want an opportunity to
they're going to do that after the Supplier now.
Dinosaur related draw step. Ceratosaur up in the air, and that is lethal.
It is, yeah, it is. That's wild. And they could even, the Ceratosaur could even get there by itself. If you Fearless Crescendo it and then play Creation Chant,
yeah,
that's 2 more cards.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Whew.
That game didn't really go the way that.
It was looking good until it wasn't.
That's a great way to put it. So.
Baying Ceratosaur, that was...
yeah, maybe people need to play Baying Ceratosaur in the starting deck.
It was really good with Dinosaur Nest. These decks, they draw a lot of cards kind of just incidentally or whatever.
Yeah, you never know what you might get.
You never know.
Yeah, that's the power of Invoke. You can sometimes you'll hit a card that maybe you haven't played with in Constructed or haven't played with in a while and make really, really good use of it. And the combination of Baying Ceratosaur with Creation Chant, even at the end of the game, because it could have just pushed so much damage. But
and really, what's the skill that would obviously move Ceratosaur into tier 1? It's flying. Flying would make that card's cracked if it had flying, right? So
Fearless Crescendo.
you already have it with Fearless Crescendo.
So how's this hand looking here for both players? The top of your screen, Jabusari lacking plays for the first few turns, and then Jabusari redrew. Having a bunch of torches in hand against Zenin is a pretty risky proposition. If they play just Devotee of the Sands and Sabertooth Pride leaders, it's not exactly going to do much.
Yeah, that's the type of hand where maybe you're on the ladder, you don't know where your opponent's playing, that's a keep, but when you know about lists, the torch is just an underperformer against Zenin typically.
All right, so Mystic Knight feeling pretty good right now with a Dismantle in hand. They're about to get their power accelerated with Aurelian Merchant. Going to be looking into the market. How early are we going to get something like End of an Era? Well, not this time. We're going to go and grab Xenon Temple. Now, Jabusari's got a great answer here for the Aurelian Merchant by way of Valkyrie Enforcer. And we'll see if they go to that or the Creation Project first.
Kind of like to do the Valkyrie Enforcer's first order of business here. Just pin their power a little bit, especially because they just won the market. And also, you're playing against a deck with a lot of removal for the Creation Project, and you might be able to bleed it out a little bit if you take your time, and then maybe be able to set it up.
Mystic Knight not playing VAR, it's because they don't have the second Shadow influence, and they also didn't inscribe the Dismantle, which would sort of queue them up for guaranteed 5th power on depleted next turn. So they're going to be relying on the top of their deck to unclog their hand, so to speak. We'll see the Creation Project come down. It's going to immediately buff up the Valkyrie Enforcer, but then we will see a Dismantle taking out that nice 3-faction relic. Twin Spitling is the draw, and that's another card that Mystic Knight can't play, so this is definitely getting dangerous for them. They've just got a absolutely beautiful hand in terms of the units that will and how they'll line up right now, but you got to actually get them down, Patrick.
Yeah, it's a shame. That is true. Oh yeah.
All right, so there is another Creation Project.
This might be the first time we've seen the warp trigger occur.
Yeah, that is. You wouldn't have predicted it would take till round 3, but there we go. Xenon Silex coming into play undepleted, and the first one, is it going to be Twin Spitling? Is it going to be Vara, Moonstone Vanguard? We're going to see Vara come down. So that guaranteed lifesteal looks to be the pick. Now we'll see Fearless Crescendo. So Jabusari immediately maybe looking for a way to get the VAR off the board.
Or maybe just a Bangs here or something.
Yeah, and they got a Mystical Shackles. They're going to warp in a Brody and get to play Mystical Shackles this turn, so nice things on the way. Maybe a Bangs there, sorry. Yeah, though you could play that in the Fearless Crescendo market.
Yeah, cost 3.
Facts only.
Makes the second copy so much better too because he was flying.
Yeah.
Just whatever. Just calling it like I see it.
All right, there's Brody. It's a 1/4. And that one will also maybe pick up flying thanks to the second Fearless Crescendo. Mystic Knight is going to play out Twin Spitling. They're getting both those bodies, hoping that will help stem the tide. But a Fearless Crescendo. Is there a possibility we can pick up the extra damage we need? Well, not quite, but Stand Together is going to make this a very hard thing to come back against.
And we're seeing kind of the one vulnerability of these Zenin decks in this kind of matchup here. It has just been the units with flying. They've just been able to squeak out spots for these decks sometimes in spots that I've seen really, really bad.
All right. So dropping Mystic Knight down to 4 with 3 very large Aegis Flyers coming at them. Mystic Knight draws Sinister Rumors, and that is just... It's not going to be enough. If they played Xenon Temple, we could use that and Xenon Initiation on the deadly Twin Spitling to kill or attack one of these Aegis Flyers down. But with 2 remaining lethal threats, Jabusari is going to pick up this match here in just a moment. And there we have the concession as Jabusari wins for the first time that we've seen today with the Creation Project. Nicely taking down the Xenon deck. And yeah, some of the individual choices there, the Fearless Crescendos look great. When you don't have Tokas in the mix, those cards can be a little more helpful. And as we see, these FTJ decks, they really make sure that they can kind of keep applying pressure and reloading nicely. And, excuse me, a couple of stumbles and coughs there from the Xenon deck were just not something they could overcome.
And you can also see in that game why some copies of Sandstorm Titan have been populating these Xenon lists. Because, again, it is really just about stopping the flying units. Unclear if it would have mattered enough that game because there were so many Valkyrie Enforcers to kind of fight through it. But the Moonstone Vanguards, the Spitlings, those are great cards at managing the ground. They don't do a whole lot in the air. And, it's not like the Zen deck hasn't beaten some of those flying units before. We have End of an Era, you have Banish, you have Spot Removal, whatever. But you can see when these creation decks are winning, it's typically on the back of units with flying.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems like that was a big decision for Mystic Knight on that market decision. They went and get Xenon Temple thinking with a Rallying Merchant and a hand of great 5-drops, they're going to accelerate out to a very nice game plan that just didn't really work out that way, though. Twilight Hunt with the Sabertooth Pryleader trading off of the Corendon Merchant for Cassandrith. And yeah, this Zen and Void deck back in the mix once again. Here's the Zinda revealed. Darkwater Vines and Iron Man's got lots of good stuff and looking to put away this mono time deck here. Tokas, Twilight Hunt, Logistics Expert. These just are not going to get it done, Patrick.
No, the mono time stuff can be pretty commonly overpowered by Zen. There you have it, especially the reanimation stuff.
Yeah, I think with the time sort of the heavier time mid-range Xenon list, the heavier time this mono time list, I can easily see that being a tough matchup. A good matchup maybe for the purposes of the Zen and Void deck, because you just have so much more powerful synergies, the ability to combine Katra and get extra power, and then you're drawing lots of cards with Tazbu, and you've got all these token makers. It's a really potent engine that it's not clear if the heavier time decks in the format have a great answer to.
A lot of ways that you can analyze sort of the mid-range unit matchups are how much time do you have against the other player if you slip up. And the mono time deck, at the end of the day, is basically just dealing damage in that sort of matchup, whereas the Zen and stuff is accumulating just overwhelming advantages if left unchecked for one turn.
All right, so now we are going to see Darkwater Vines and an Inscribed Fear is going to start filling up these voids. Both players getting stuff going in. A lot of units went in for Popotito. They have Katra the first seal. Not sure that they actually have a second power in the void, so might not have been exactly ideal, but still a bunch of exciting, expensive units if they can ever get a grasping at shadows in the mix. All right, so for Brontar, yeah, the 2-1 Darkwater Vines lining up really nicely against the Plunk, and we see no attack.
Yeah. Darkwater Vines remains one of the most important cards in this deck, and certainly against any deck that's attacking you, it's going to be your best card.
And now we'll see Exploit hitting the hand of Brontar. Can maybe take that Display of Survival, maybe a Maveloft Huntress. Iadria is a pretty annoying card to play against, but with 2 in hand, you'd have to be confident you could deal with the second one before you'd want to take the first, as really that first hit of that nice passive effect is all you need. Yeah, and it takes out the Display of Survival. That would have been able to transform the Darkwater Vines into a Scaligron, and Scaligron doesn't block Plunk as well.
No, those numbers are not good for Gron. There aren't that many that are bad. 4-2 is one of them.
All right, so no plundering, it looks like, for Popotito. But they're getting queued up to maybe bring back a power with Katra next turn. Brontar draws the Mother of Skies this turn. And if Brontar wants, they can play Iadria. It would mean that the Dark Water Vines no longer has a free block, but they're going to play Mother of Skies and try to start winning this game in the air by making Cloud Snakes with it.
Yeah, just a really slow way to try to do it. So
there's Katra, so 1 power coming back. Looks like just the one. It'll buff it up to a 6/4. And now Brontar with Mother of Skies and multi-faction units will try to build out an air force. I'm going to start things off, though, with a Maveloft Huntress imbuing onto Plunk. It's going to take out Katra, prevent it from surging and growing any larger. Mother of Skies is going to come in for a point. Felon Tomb for Brontar.
So where you're seeing now some of the strength of the Reanimator deck is it's not just about Grasp Shadows for something large. They can play kind of an honest game with all their card advantage and such. And that's a really powerful response to this sort of thing. Vara Vengeance Seeker in particular is a card where a lot of the strategies that are about I'm going to apply some pressure, but I'm going to hold some stuff back. I'm going to try to race you in the air. I'm going to have Aegis units that are hard to kill. Vara is so strong against anything kind of in that constellation.
So we see Iadria, the Twisted Brewer, making a Cloud Snake thanks to Mother of Skies, and one's coming in now. Crack the Earth for Popatito is a good chance we'll see that get played here. Play a 1/1 Cultist, and then you can swap the card from your hand with a 5-cost card in your market. Critically, Grasping at Shadows costs 5, but there's a couple of options that we often see players get, whether it's Xenon Temple, End of an Era, and it'll be Grasping at Shadows. I think I saw Popatito have an Azindo Revealed go to their Void earlier. I'm sure we'll find out the answer to that in a moment, as looks like Popatito's going to be going for Twisted Farmer first, which could be good, but it does open up this window now where Brontar is going to be able to play Blight Pass Smuggler and might be able to mess with this whole game plan if they've got a good piece of tech in the market.
Yeah, some negate or some such. Also nice that, you know, it's another multi-faction card for Mother of Skies. Yeah, the Adra back sort of making racing with Vara not really an option. So Brontar is, I mean, you know, if you look at sort of the hands and the board, you'd say Brontar looks kind of behind here or at risk of being overpowered, but there's enough going on here that it can at least stem the tide for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and for Brontar, you're kind of got to be figuring out what exactly could be going on here, because what you know happened is Popatito went into their market, got a 5-cost card. Well, we know they had 5 power last turn. They've got 6 still available to them, but they didn't play anything, so it means there's a game afoot, and they're going to go and get Helio here. So that's going to really cue them up to draw a couple cards from their deck. But if Popatito's got a plan of bringing back something like Tazbu or Azindo Revealed, they're going to be drawing a lot more cards in a moment. All right, there we go. Grasping at Shadows. So they just have Tazbu the Forbidden. When all those mandrakes die, they will be drawing some extra cards. But this big attack, yeah, so even Vara got into the mix. That's going to get blocked down by the Blight Pass Smuggler. And then it's just a matter of how much extra damage. It looks like Brontar's going for the route of, you're going to draw just a ton of cards, so I'm going to kill some things. You'll draw a ton, but you'll also take a bunch of damage.
Yeah, but there's no way to stop. You know, the die has been cast, so to speak, as far as the cards go. Brontar can't stop that from happening, but the what they can do is just make some inroads on the units that are going to stick around for a little bit.
So, Crest of Cunning will scout first. And we'll see all the flyers come in. 3 more damage for Brontar. Helio, 6 cost 2/2 is going to draw 3. Felm Tome, a Direwood pack. A couple of Direwood packs. Those would have been pretty nice on a little bit earlier when those sapsuckers came down. Warfolk gonna do some discarding in the void, and so we're gonna see Popotito setting up for a really big Katra the first seal here, though. Wow, that was a bunch more non-power.
I mean, does Popotito have any power in the void right now?
I don't know that they do. Let's see. Have they discarded anything recently? No, they don't. So they just played Katra. They grew it up, gained a little bit of health back thanks to it, and no attacks. Wow, from Brontar. So seems like there's a real possibility here of Brontar being able to get ahead in this game through the use of flying units.
Yeah, I mean, the problem here is the clock is very slow. And Popotito's looked at so many cards that you have to assume if you just sort of empty out, here's all my units, that they're going to be able to market for a sweeper or find some other way to really make life challenging. There's not really much else you can do, but, you know, if you're on the plan of I'm going to break you up with disruption and be hitting you, you know, once that dam opens up of card advantage, it's really hard to come back if you don't have that much pressure.
So we see another Cloud Snake get made. And so now for Popotito, are we going to be playing a Zindel? Ebendude Smuggler is going to go into the market. It's going to grab End of an Era. And so this is going to kill a lot of things. But keep in mind, it's also going to really grow these Direwood packs. As like right now, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 units are going to get killed. Yeah. So Popotito's going to draw a bunch of cards, and Tazbu can trade with one thing, but this is a lot of problems. And now look at this. With Maveloft Huntress, we can take care of one of these blockers, and then I think Brontar is going to be able to get through for a lethal attack.
Right, you can Huntress and take care of the Tazbu, and then whatever you imbued unlocks. And then you have lethal coming across here.
So very nicely done by Brontar, overcoming a pretty potent draw there. It seems like one of the keys to the game was just the Katras not being able to bring back much power from the void, and yeah, Brontar ties this one up at 1 game apiece.
Yeah, Popotito was really hoping to kind of bridge there, of being able to play Katra, get a weave of power, and then the next turn I can start doing, you know, go get End of an Era, play it, and now do something else. They're just a little bit choked on power there, and not quite able to stabilize. Die with, like 8 or 9 cards in hand, including Adizo's Office, but just wasn't able to make that skip from, 7 power to 10 power, and now running away with things.
Yeah, I think a key point in the game was that turn after they crack the earth. They have Grasping at Shadows. They can immediately get Azendo revealed and maybe get through a little bit there. And instead, they tried to set up for a very big turn with Twisted Sapsucker, Sporefolk, and Katra, and it just didn't really work out the way that they were envisioning.
Yeah, and I think the attack, the A spacebar, that turn that you mentioned, getting the Vara in there, was not that profitable. And the Vara would have been really awesome to have in the aftermath of End of an Era, or just like as a thing to have going on. So that might have been a big inflection point too.
All right, top of your screen. Popotito's going to keep a hand. Nothing like crazy going on with this one. There's no discarding. There's no Katra. There's no way to get Grasping at Shadows. We got Twisted Farmer and going to try to get that one eventually with Tazbu going. Meanwhile, for Brontar, you know, exploit into some solid Felon units, and we'll see how they can develop that plan. Couple copies of Last Chance. That's a real great selection option when you've stocked your Void up with great Xenon units, but no discard, so as of right now, it can just kind of maybe undo the exploit. But interestingly, Brontar decided to hold off on that.
Love that play from Brontar because,
Yeah.
I mean, their best stuff they're going to have 2 turns from now anyway. You know, it's not like they go, you know, Merchant and Smuggler and then do something explosive, right? We're talking turn 5, turn 6. So you might as well defer it a little bit, give them the opportunity to draw something better, give them the opportunity to smuggle, or just even have more information about what you want to plunder away. Not the most intuitive play, but I think that's really, really sharp.
All right, so Midnight Gale can pick up Lifesteal, but first we're going to play out the Direwood pack in case there was a late banish that was coming. They're going to get it for 4, and now Popatito's plan was probably to Twisted Farmer and Amplify twice, but that is not a fun thing to do up against a Direwood pack, and so they're going to hold off and just do nothing. And now Brontar is going to be able to get a Champion of Cunning going. Direwood pack is going to attack here, Patrick, but Twisted Farmer could clean that one up if it does.
Yeah, I mean, Brontar might be making a calculation here that if that is Popatito's turn, that Brontar is really happy with that.
Yep, that's fair. Because now what we're going to get to see is Champion of Cunning come down. It'll be 5/5 Flying Aegis, and at end of turn, it's going to buff itself and the other units +2 strength. I mean,
also just it's really easy to, I think, overvalue your stuff on the ground. Between Vines, Twisted Farmer, all that, you got a spot to cash it in. You don't have to go crazy, I don't think.
So an impressive comeback there from Brontar. Seemed like Popatito had game number 2 in a pretty good position, and they were up a game, but just like that, they lost game 2, and then that game was just really not the kind of draw you're looking from the Xenon deck, and kind of they had too many copies of cards which kind of work well with other things in the sense of they had a bunch of Twisted Farmers and a bunch of Last Chances. They didn't really get to the point where they were combining them with the things that they were hoping to.
Right, and no real way to stop flying units. And again, we've been coming back to that a lot of the Zen Reanimator deck is really good at locking up the ground with Vara and Vines, and even Sporefolk gives you just enough breathing space to get to your powerful plays, but that's how it doesn't defend you against flyers and Midnight Gale and the Champion of Cunning. Just no response really in that hand.
Yeah. An impressive debut so far for Direwood pack, I would say.
Oh, it's looked great. Yeah. Had 2 games there and was a superstar in one of them and pretty good in the other.
All right, Shenra Speaks just cleaned up some things for M-Sorbet, and they're up against Portage right now. Looks like a similar deck to what we just saw from Popatito. But Ikaria the First Reaper, you know, there's sometimes a bit of a mix of what you got at the top end between things like Fear and Carvet, Tazbu, Ikaria First Reaper. That one can't kill any units right now, but it does have a nice effect of having Entomb make your opponent discarding stuff from their hand. Let's see, Corendon Merchant picking up Subversion of Nature. How you feel about that, Patrick?
Love it. One of my favorite market targets.
Now we'll see Grasping at Shadows with Katra. So yeah, 5-cost Grasping at Shadows, bringing back a 4-cost Katra, the first seal. And now if M-Sorbet just goes with Pillar of Progress plus Equalize, we're going to see both of those units die, and Portage will have to discard to down to just 1 card in hand. And will they keep that Subversion of Nature? Feels like that's the best thing, but right now it's just the most expensive Subvert we've seen in a while. Yeah, that's going to be the last one. And you probably feel pretty good that there's like the last card in Absorbit's hand is something at least decent. And Stormhall Plating is quite nice, but you're always hoping for a little more.
In terms of cards?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. But, if they're going to have one, that's the one to have.
It probably was the best card that for Portage to be able to steal. And there we see another Stormhall Plating. And now this opens up a little bit of a cat and mouse game because if Absorbit just throws down the Stormhall Plating, he gets eaten by the other one. Now the Spore Folk, that 1/2 body is actually tremendous because the same is not true for Portage.
One, it's not the same for the reason that you mentioned, but also this moves it into a 2-turn clock because it's 24 over 2 turns from the plating. But the Spore Folk now Sorbet actually has to make a move because it's lethal next turn.
Indeed they do. So we're going to see Sorbet have to play Stormhall Plating. They'll first get to kill the Spore Folk, and then they'll get to weaken down the Stormhall Plating. Theirs is a 7-string thanks to Pillar of Progress. But Portage has still got an armor left, and now they're going to be able to take out the plating. They're going to put Sorbet in just range for one more turn with that plating. The top of the deck doesn't have something here, and it's got something for Portage. Diana's Faith Shield keeps him alive.
Not shabby. I mean, you're going to have to string together multiple cards to get through this, so.
Right. So the second one was a brick, and that Justice Sigil. Stormhall Plating finishes off the Diana. Now is Zindo revealed. Portage technically won't have a lethal attack, and an Equalize is going to ensure that there will be no attack. We're back to a straight-up top deck war here. Portage at 34, Sorbet at a virtual 11, and now there's Fear on top. And yeah, it's a deadly unblockable unit. Once again, Sorbet's going to be down to their last draw with Portage picking up a last chance. That could get a Zindel back into play and get another good card for Sorbet. I think the real question here for Portage is there any chance you want to not play out whatever you get back here in case there's another Shenra Speaks or another Equalize?
I think it's worth doing just because if you get a Zindel, at least you have a card for your trouble in the worst case scenario. Also, because of Relics having +1 tag, that means that a potential Stormhall playing off the top answers the Fear clean.
So, Sorbet top deck Shenra Speaks. The Azindel would have stolen it, but if it had been the second card down, much worse.
Not, it's just a different game.
Now Stormhall Plating, that can very nicely hit a Zindel and one Halisi. And then the other Halisi will drop Sorbet down to 3. So incredible how this game is just hinging on these very small stat lines right now, or stat differences.
Yeah, the +1 strength, a huge deal there.
Found another Zindel. So just haymakers coming off the top of the deck. Sorbet said it a couple times down to their last draw. Diana was taken off the top. Another Equalizer, are you kidding me? Seed of Progress gets him down to empty hand. Equalize gets the Diana out of hand, kills all the Halisi, kills the Azindel. Portage can't believe it. They keep putting Sorbet to the test, and the top of the deck just keeps on delivering. Sabertooth Pride Leader, another lethal threat. A new beginning.
Oh,
all right.
wow.
So we get to
Redraw.
play a power. We hit Stormhall Plating.
Oh my god, the Pride Leader is going to be so sick here.
Oh, it's disgusting. Sabertooth Pride Leader is going to wipe out the Stormhall Plating and then wipe out Sorbet for Xaxes. If Sorbet had just inscribed the Stormhall Plating, they would have seen another turn, but how would you ever make that play?
No, I don't think you can play around. The Pride Leader is going to be pretty tough that game regardless. So.
Wow, an incredible finish there as Portage advances. Sorbet had just about 9 lives there, it seemed like.
Yeah, some haymakers, but Sorbet there, all of their haymakers kind of just got the game back to parity. And when you're at something of like a 5 to 35 health discrepancy, the other side is going to be favored a lot of the time. But that was still a lot of back and forth there.
All right, so that was the last match of the round, and we will be back with a top 16 that'll have to live up and follow that one because that was quite an exciting way to end off the round. But we'll be back and we'll do our best in just a little bit. So, talking about Eternal, and you mentioned you came to the game way back in closed beta. So, my guess is if you wanted to put a year on it, that was probably December of 2016.
Yeah.
You've been playing the game for a while now. Do you have a favorite format to play?
Yeah, I do enjoy like Throne the most, and I also do every month the Sealed League. But then I don't know, I still enjoy Throne the most. Like, that's my favorite format.
Cool. Do you have what's your current Throne deck of choice?
Oh, I play pretty much everything. Like uh, there is no deck that I don't play because I've been playing a lot, so I have all the cards. So it's kind of easy to just pick something and try how I like it. And usually I get bored like quite easily. Like I play maybe 50 games of one deck and then just jump to another one. But I have enjoyed Yetis like a lot during my past times, and I usually do enjoy more of the aggressive decks than those that are really controlling or grindy, or what do you call them?
Yeah.
Also, like usually I don't play combo decks, or I always try them out, but I just don't like them. So usually more on the aggressive side, not like not always hyper aggressive decks, but those that are more on the beatdown side of the spectrum.
Well, when we get to some questions, we'll have to ask you. Oh, why don't we do it now? Do you have any reaction? We're filming this right just a day or two after we released the most recent balance patch. Any big picture reactions to the cards that were changed there?
Not really. Like I do trust your work there, like what you're doing. I don't think I've ever complained about the balance changes. Like I do understand why you make them. Not always like I don't like them always, but I understand why this need to be done. But for the Tadrock's masterwork, I'm not sure this was something that you had to do, but okay, I'm fine with it. There's plenty of other decks for me to play, so
yeah, that change was an interesting one. Yetis is a deck that it's funny. So we get to see numbers about how individual cards and decks are winning in the format, and so Yetis tends to be often right at basically the top for the most winningest decks in the game. It's oftentimes been literally the top, but then it won't actually have a metagame share of what you would commonly think maybe the highest win rate deck would be. And so when we're looking at something like, okay, we've got a Throne Open coming up, what things could be changed to make this and feel like an exciting format with lots for players to discover? And we see that there's a lot of debate about whether or not maybe we want to try to pull back on some portion of a deck like that. In this case, it certainly was a close call, and we'll certainly be seeing how things play out. But yeah, the masterwork got a little bit of got hit this time around.
yeah. Well, I wasn't going to be playing that, so it's fine.
Well, by the time this airs, we'll already be into the event. Do you know what deck you're going to play?
I have few different things that I've been trying, like because I already am qualified, so I was thinking that I'd probably be playing something which is more on the fun side. So I've been playing this like colorless green, with what's the name? It's Lada something.
Oh,
The
the
green
go ahead.
unit that gives the sites that they do 2 times the agenda.
Yeah, Lada
So there
Svetya's
is,
advisor.
yeah, that one, and also Speaking Circle and the Strangers site. I don't remember the name.
Traverse Farm, yeah. That's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
cool deck. All right.
yeah.
I don't know that I've ever gotten to commentate a tournament match with Lada in it, so I'd love to see that. We'll check. We'll see. Maybe we'll be coming back from break when this from watching you play it. We'll see.
Could be nice. Let's see.
Did you build that deck yourself?
No, I think it was, I don't remember the name, but my friend got it from Eternal Warcry, and I just made few changes based on the metagame. But now that you kind of pulled back on the reanimated deck, I have to also make choices like different from what it was before. Like I was playing Embargo Officer and Stayer's Eyes just to be like hating out that deck. But now I
Mm.
don't know if those are needed, but let's see how all things shake out.
I'm curious. I don't know if you've pre-ordered Enter the Arcanum, and I'm curious if Star Charts will be a good choice for that deck.
Yeah, I haven't ordered it yet, but that was the point kind of for the deck, that I was feeling that I'm all the time on the draw. So it was like, I don't want to play something super aggressive, because I was feeling that, let's say, 4 out of 10 games I get to start, not like 5 out of 10 would be the 50-50. So I was feeling like I want something that is good on the draw, and then right away you print a card that says that when you are on the draw, you get one more power. I'm like, wow, this is like just right for that deck.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think Enter the Arcanum's not fully revealed yet, but my prediction is that this one will have some impact on Throne this set. So we'll see. Do you have have any of the cards particularly caught your eye yet?
For sure, yeah, the blue 3/1 discard something to make an effect. I don't remember the name. Some elf it was, but
Yeah, Left
maybe
Right
left right
Marauder.
something. Yeah, that was right away like, oh my, this is powerful.
Welcome back. It's top 16 time here at the Throne Open. Been through a couple rounds today, and Xenon has been doing quite nicely. We've seen some very exciting games. New cards getting to the mix. Curious to see how Feln will do moving forward. Just that Direwood Pack game we saw looked very nice. It seems like they got some solid synergies. So, still too early to call it a race. We're gonna play out these next couple rounds to get down to a champion, but some storylines starting to emerge from today's Open.
And even within Zenon, there, it's one of those classic. There's too many good cards to play them all, and so people have to make some calls here. We're seeing some reanimation strategies that I think are trying to kind of go over the top of the mirror matches, and then we have much lower to the ground decks that aren't really playing that same top end, playing with some cards like Sandsword Titan and maybe Tokos to try to have a better game against the aggressive strategies.
Yeah, and a deck we haven't seen this weekend has been the Huru Kira decks. It's usually more of a mainstay, and there were a good number of copies in our Sunday finalists this weekend. Some taking advantage of the new removal spell Volatile Reaction, also playing with Mila Exchange Student. Haven't seen them in the mix just yet, but maybe we'll see one in our top 16 as we get started with the round. As for coming up in the future with Eternal, as mentioned, we got a new chapter starting off the month of September, and folks here are hard at work on the next set, and we'll be excited to share that all with you soon. But for now, we got an Expedition Open coming up next month, and then we've got a draft open after that, and the 2022 season just keeps on rolling along. Still got a few opens left to try to punch your ticket to the World Championships, and then as we get a little bit closer towards the end of the year, we'll talk about our last chance qualifier opens.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say, we're hitting the home stretch getting towards the World Championships, and it feels like just yesterday we were doing the first one of these. So it's moving fast, still plenty of time to qualify, and those upcoming expedition and draft opens, which you could, they're open to play if you just play in the Friday sort of day one, and you can get here. There's no gate, you had to play on the ladder for such and such time. So if you're watching this, you're interested in trying to qualify for the World Championship, as Andrew just mentioned, we have an expedition open coming up in September, and then a draft open in October, a few more beyond that, and again, they're open to the public, and you can take that opportunity to try to qualify for the World Championships.
All right, so top of your screen, we've got a rank 13 on creation. Bottom, we've got Gozu bringing a Xenon mid-range list. Huntmaster Vikram and Nahid's Faithful, two more Xenon units that we haven't seen in lists yet today, but boy, those two sure do go well together.
Huntmaster Vikram?
Yeah.
It's been a minute. Where you been?
Yeah, it's a little less popular this weekend in Thrones, certainly. There was a nerf to the Rat King activation cost now of 2, so a little bit harder to set up that turn where you just go like Huntmaster Vikram and kill the thing immediately, but still obviously a really potent tool. And Nahid's Faithful, 2/2 lifesteal for just 1 power. Look at this, just stopping the early attacks here. A rank 13 deciding not to Fearless Crescendo up a Grenadin drone.
It's a lot of discipline.
And now we'll see an exploit here from Gozu. A couple of Aurelian suppliers in the holdings, as well as Stand Together, Fearless Crescendo. Bunch of ways they could go with this one.
I mean, I just want kind of a smooth path to Vara into Tazbu. That seems like the thing to be doing here. Yeah, it has some interest in probably taking the Stand Together, make Arik brawl with you on the ground while you're just playing just good stuff.
So a big decision here from Gozu. They are going to fire off the Shadow Etchings and get that Shadow Sigil now so they can play Vikram or Vara next turn. It would be quite enticing to try to use that to maybe get an End of the Era out of the market, but what this is going to open up by now A rank 13 bouncing the Nahid's Faithful back to hand as they can play Aurelian Supplier, fewer cards in hand, and they get to draw 2, deal damage. They found another copy of the Creation Project. So good things on the way now for A rank 13. Vara Vengeance Seeker going to cause the sacrifice to keep it a 3/3. We'll see Dinosaur Nest first here for A rank 13. It's a nice bit of sequencing. It both gets the Dinosaur Nest closer towards the completion of its progression of making 3 dinosaurs and then flipping over, and it could bait out a piece of attachment interaction that would have gone on the Creation Project. So yeah, we're going to see just a banish to the Dinosaur Nest. So this feels like this is a game plan which is well coming together for Gozu. We are going to see a trade-off here on the Vara. A little surprised by that just with the Creation Project coming maybe next turn and buffing all those units.
Well, it also feels sort of like Gozu changed their mind midstream, because all other things being equal, you would just attack first and leave yourself the opportunity to banish double block if you want to do it, or at least make it much riskier for Arak to make that block. So again, I feel like there was a decision made, and then somewhere in the middle a different decision got made.
All right, so now Exploit's going to hit the hand for A rank once again, and this is where things get a little bit awkward for Gozu. Once the Creation Project is up and running and giving things warp to the top of the deck, playing the style of game where we're exploiting and taking cards out of the hand is not really getting Gozu closer to the finish.
Right. Nahid's Faithful plus Vikram is a good way of the combination of answering the board and just getting some good stuff on the ground. Twisted Farmer, if things break the right way, could also do something similar, but you are right. This is not a sustainable game You either got to blow this thing up, or you got to land some haymaker that can overpower all the extra cards.
Desert Marshal on top for A rank 13, not the ideal card to see. It would tie up most of A rank 13's power to warp it this turn, but there's nothing to silence right now.
Well, and also, if you don't warp it, it's your draw step next turn. So if it's not doing much for you now, it's not likely to be doing much for you the following turn also. So you're a little priced in, I think, to warping it here just to keep the engines humming.
All right, so we'll see Power Cell plus a Power Burst. Desert Marshal coming off the top of the deck. Going to silence the Twisted Farmer. And now for Gozu, if you want, you could Vikram the Power Cell and then maybe Nahid's Faithful it.
It feels like you need to take a bigger swing than that. With Arak stuck on 3 power, a handful of cards, that turn's not bad. Maybe you're kind of forced to do it because you're bereft of other options, but you'd like for Vikram plus Nahid's Faithful to do something a little bit swingier than that.
Yeah, I think the best reason to do that play would just be that Gozu exploited recently and saw an Aurelian Supplier in the opponent's hand, and that had the promise of maybe turning that off. As it stands, a lot's happening.
Yeah.
Now we will see another Twisted Farmer, and once again, we're going to get a good amount of cleanup going here from these units.
Yeah, this is not too shabby. You can chump block a 3/3. You can put 3 Sapsuckers in front of a 3/3, and then double block with your 2 Twisted Farmers in front of a 3/3. Again, you can't do this forever for the reasons that you mentioned. It's not a sustainable way of handling this sort of card advantage. But again, you're at least out of the worst of it in the short term, and maybe you can set up some sequence down the line.
Yeah, the biggest thing here is if Gozu is playing with the End of an Era and does have ways to grab it out of the market, the Creation Project could pull A rank 13 quite far ahead, but then it could all get undone. And now we're going to see Reappropriator potentially get used. I don't think Gozu knows about that Desert Marshal in hand, but we're going to see Huntmaster Vikram first. So we will see an attack open up. Nahid's Faithful. And so one nice thing about this from Gozu's perspective is, yeah, you could have reappropriated the Creation Project right now, immediately sort of have access to it. But by doing this Vikram, Nahid's Faithful stuff, you got a lot more on the board that's going to get buffed by that +1/+1 Anthem effect.
Yeah, again, it's hard to imagine. You don't have all the time in the world here, so you need to be running downhill a little bit once you make your move.
Vargo Redclaw from the Abundance. That one can't be killed except from damage, so things like Banishes and Harsh Rules will not kill Vargo. Reappropriator takes off the Creation Project, and Desert Marshal, this is sort of the way to next level players bringing a Reappropriator for the Creation Project. The one thing to watch out for, though, is because the Creation Project sort of gives warp at the start of the turn, in this case, we're not getting that benefit right now. A Dinosaur Nest for Gozu, and with a second Creation Project coming now, another Dinosaur Nest for A rank, we're going to need to see some swingier catch-up tools pretty fast. Otherwise, this is all going to roll downhill for A rank 13.
And the second Creation Project is really important here because then Nahid's Faithful at a 4/4 was kind of plugging up the dam a little bit in terms of Arak being able to attack with everything. But it's possible that that creates enough to sort of push things wide open.
All right, here we go for A rank 13, a Power Cell, given a Power Burst. So we're going to see the hand get emptied as A rank 13 throwing down multiple Creation Projects. The Twisted Farmer in hand means Gozu has some time. I think they might even get through this block with just their existing units and set themselves up for the Twisted Farmer to blank the next attack when it could do even more. No, all right, we're going to be doing it right now.
Yeah, it's possible that Gozu's circumstances are so dire that they need to just spend all their power this turn and then hope to draw something big next turn.
So looks like a combination block, a series of them, is going to make some progress on this board. No damage is going to come across. A rank 13 is going to lose a couple of their units here. They're going to lose at least one of the Alessis, the Desert Marshal. And with a Dinosaur Nest, Gozu is going to be able to produce some chump blockers over the next few turns. And again, it's really going to come down to, can they come up with some kind of big swingy effect? Because these sort of, every turn of this is really going A-Rank's way. And now with a Fearless Crescendo on top of the deck, if that one can grab something like a Stand Together or some other way to stop the countermeasures, it's going to become a very tricky game. Edict of Grodov, yep, that's a very nice one to have in the mix. Another big attack from these units. Almost half of Gozu's health total going away here. Gozu drops to 13. They got a Vara. And the real sort of test here for A rank 13 is that if you remove the VAR, maybe you can get a lethal attack, but then you open yourself up. So how are they going to play this?
Yeah, they might. I mean, it would stand to reason that the last card in hand for Gozu is nothing, but A-Rank might be so far ahead that they can afford to be extra conservative.
There's Aurelian Infestation, and there is Stand Together on top of the deck for A rank 13. Though, yeah, and so we're going to see Vargo come in because the Aegis suppression of Vara going away will unlock that Stand Together. Now Gozu's trying to keep around Vara. That makes sense. But the top of the deck is got to be something a little better than your favorite Illicit Exchange.
Well, you just set up the next turn. All right, there's no next turn.
So Gozu loses game number 1. So Gozu, I would say they look to be, this is a little bit of a different than some of the other even Xenon decks, I would say. It looks like they're trying to be a little bit more aggressive. They're definitely not heavy time-based like we've seen with the All-Head Ascending decks, plenty of Shadow Sigils, Illicit Exchange. And so they're trying to use Twisted Farmers alongside Dinosaur Nest, reappropriate Vikram, and I think that's an often underrated aspect of Vikram, is it is one of the best units in the game at opening up an attack, because even if you ultimately give back the unit, you still exhaust it and you still steal it.
Yep. I mean, but a lot of that game plan is predicated on being able to keep the Creation Project out of the equation, because the deck, though it's much faster, as you mentioned, it's a lot less powerful. It's not a guarantee that they can just lock up the ground with high-quality units. There's not the, Sandstorm Titan, Azindal, Moonstorm Vanguard kind of allotment of stuff that we see with the much heavier time builds. And as we saw in that game, once the Creation Project went unchecked, the Vikram, Nahid's Faithful kind of stuff is not strong enough to keep up with the avalanche of stuff coming.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, and the Creation Project, even if you answered on your turn with something like a reappropriator, it oftentimes will be used in a way where you're going to get that immediate bonus. And I thought it was a really nicely played and sequenced game from A-Rank in terms of how they put things out on the board, getting that Dinosaur Nest down first, which got hit by a banish to open up the Creation Project was big. And that's sometimes the kind of thing that you need to adjust to when you're playing in tournaments and playing against exclusively high-level competition, is holding on to banish there if your Gozu is the kind of play that you would consider making the better the competition is, because it's more likely your opponent is trying to bait you.
Yeah. Although it is a bit of an issue in the matchup here for Gozu that a lot of the other builds of Zen that we're seeing, they just are playing with more powerful cards, and they can kind of afford to ignore Dinosaur Nest up to a certain point. Gozu's deck is playing with enough units of comparable quality to a fully triggered nest that it requires an answer early on in the game in a way that some of the other Zen decks, they can kind of sit a little bit and try to hold their relic removal for some choicer targets.
All right, Alessi plus an Initiate of the Sands is going to come down after the Vine Grafter. And so for Gozu, a very big turn 3 decision. Do we see something like an exploit to ensure there's nothing big in the hand, or do we go into the market with Vinegrafter? We're going to exploit first. They're going to know what they're up against. They see a copy of the Creation Project. They also see what looks to be an extremely potent next turn if they take the Creation Project with Power Cell into Power Burst, Aurelian Infestation into Abundance, and that's 1, 2, 5. That's like it's a 7-drop. So they're going to hit the Abundance.
I don't have Gozu's list in front of me, so I can't speak to the details here. I feel Vinegrafter plus Twisted Farmer is enough lifting against someone who's all on the ground that if you don't have an answer to the Creation Project rolled up, my instinct is that's actually the more threatening card of the two.
Well, we'll see, as Vinegrafter is now going to use its regen to get sort of a free block on Alessi, and A rank 13 has Aurelian Infestation and Grenadin Drone. Both would be buffed up by the Creation Project, and they're going to get the Grenadin Drone first. Now for Gozu, what is their catch-up plan? There's a Reappropriator on top of the deck. That's nice. And now with Vinegrafter going into the market, picking up an End of an Era, and this is the big cleanup spell, the big catch-up spell for these Xenon decks. And we'll see an all-out attack. The Vinegrafter block on Initiative of the Sands is pretty good, but Gozu's going to go for the sort of the most, I would say, telegraphed block, and that's the one that's going to make A rank 13 hit the brakes the hardest here. End of an Era is going to take out a bunch of things. Gozu was just one short of being able to get to Dizo's office, so they are not getting one. Now Power Burst from the Power Cell into Aurelian Supplier. Draw 2. Another Aurelian Supplier and an Auryn Infestation. Back to the Mandrakes with Vinegrafter. Could have immediately gone for the ultimate. Instead, we are going to see them pause as another Aurelian Supplier refuels the hand for A rank 13.
Yeah, a little bit of signal here, having used the previous Vinegrafter, not playing anything in that turn, that a regen Vinegrafter could be in the works here, and Aaron very wisely pumps the brakes.
All right, so just one Sapsucker for Gozu. And right after an Aurelian Supplier has been played, this feels like a pretty good time to draw an exploit, and Gozu has. They're going to see a hand without any obvious all-stars, just 4 more solid cards. They take out the Desert Marshal, keep things nice and non-silenced for their Reappropriator in the future. And now Huntmaster Vikram is going to go after the Power Cell. If A rank 13 wants, they can pause to Reflection that back to hand. They will. Still feels like a pretty good exchange for Gozu. That pause for Reflection could have been used potentially on an Aurelian Supplier in the future, and now it won't be able to.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an ideal usage, but there's no way that A-Rank is going to be using all their power for the rest of the game, or almost certainly not, so you just kind of got to get through that card at that point.
And now Gozu draws an illicit exchange. They also have a Tazbu on top of their deck. They're going to warp that one. And yeah, A rank 13 played out a bunch of cards in hand last turn, and now they top deck Abundance. So unfortunate how that worked out for them. It's always the thing you got to consider is when you have Abundance in your deck, how much do you ever want to like hold back units and spells if they're not doing anything for you right away?
Well, it looked like Anrak might have been approaching the point where they were able to attack on the ground. Once Tazbu showed up, that's been shut off at least for now.
Whew. So Gozu going and grabbing D'Angelo Might. It'll allow them in the future to draw cards equal to the highest strength among their units. So a very big turn here for A rank 13. The Scorpions are done shifting, so they're going to get to make an unblockable attack. Now for Gozu, time to draw 6. Xenon Silex, Devour, Twisted Farmer, another Silex, a Nest, and a Moldermuck. So, yeah, that I think that was a nice play there from Gozu. They could have played Dinosaur Nest, but they're enough worried about A rank 13 having a huge turn here that they wanted to have the ability to play Devour or Twisted Farmer to help things out a bit.
Yeah, the Nest is a pretty long way away from being a part of this. And honestly, now with Gozu at 13, there's an argument for the 1/1 tokens are actually kind of sketchy because you're taking the damage off of the Tazbu triggers if they get involved in combat.
All right, so a Twisted Farmer played, no Sapsuckers, but yeah, we've definitely gotten into this range where Gozu's going to have to be careful about how much Tazbu goes off this game.
Yeah, I mean, Gozu's in a squeeze now of needing to attack but also needing to block and trading off anything being really dangerous. So a lot of great cards in hand, a lot of ways to sort of maneuver here, but also very easy to get tripped up here.
So Reappropriator is going to take A rank's Dinosaur Nest. Also gives Gozu a little bit more of a clock, and now Huntmaster Vikram will steal a Lessie. Nice thing there about taking a Lessie is that if you can keep a Lessie around, every time you play a spell, she gets +1/+1, and you gain an armor, and that can be used to help offset damage. And A rank 13 felt pretty locked out, and so they're going to scoop him up. And yeah, we see that come up sometimes. It's a little surprising that maybe a Fearless Crescendo couldn't maybe unlock the game, but that was it for game number 2, as Gozu is going to be going to a game 3 here.
Yep. I was a little skeptical of D'Angelo Might as the market target of choice there, just because it felt like, well, if you have a second sweeper, if you have something, that would be a lot more powerful here. But just being able to lock up the ground and keep leveraging your 2-for-1s, your sort of better units, that was enough, and A-Rank called it quits.
Yeah. And we see a similar dynamic with both D'Angelo Might and with Helio being sometimes these big card draw effects that come out of the market where players oftentimes can't market for them and play them in the same turn. And so there's this sort of prediction of like, next time I'm going to be able to afford to take it off and basically spend my entire turn just drawing cards. And when that doesn't work out, it can be disastrous. In this case, they had the time and it all worked out. All right, so starting things off, A rank 13 has an Initiative the Sands into maybe a turn 2 Aurelian Supplier. So a really very tempo efficient draw here for A rank 13. They don't have any of their sort of bigger payoff cards, no creation projects yet, but we'll see what Aurelian Supplier delivers. And there's one along in the mix. So now Gozu's going to get going with the Dinosaur Nest, and with a Stand Together, there's a lot of potential here for A rank 13 to be too far ahead by the time Gozu gets set up.
Yeah, I think there's some logic here is, one, it's just some more damage this turn, but two, if Gozu takes their turn banishing your creation, then that opens up the window for other stuff. You still have Stand Together left over.
So here we go. The Creation Project has a Praxis banner on top for A rank 13. Now we're going to see Aurelian Infestation into Abundance, into a Stand Together is the prediction. And there's Galai Shavka's Listener. Wow, they get to invoke fire off of that. So a ton of great things happening right now. Thunder Titan.
Don't mind that.
Yeah.
Don't mind that.
And we're already in potentially chump block mode for Gozu. Stand Together means this is going to be an attack for 6. Those Scorpions will someday be unblockable attacking. And Vara is going to need to do a lot of lifting here. Because we could... It does line up nicely against Galai's current stats as a 6/3, but any more buffs is going to be very annoying. All right, just a Diplo Seal on top, and then a Power Cell. So This doesn't immediately really unlock things, I would say. The Aurelian Supplier can get in. Will we see a double block here? Or no, it's going to be another chump.
Yeah, the Vara holding some stuff back is really valuable. The argument for a double block there is it might be really your only chance to profitably cash Vara in for 3 additional health.
And I don't think we should bury Gozu quite yet, Patrick, because look at this. So Vara cleans that up. And then next turn, if we can get through, if we can, we might be able to play an End of an Era. Now, a Fearless Crescendo on Galai. I guess this turn it would get chump blocked.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a way in the market to knock that off. Also, you know, presumably get an extra invoke out of this whole thing.
I think we might see A rank go for that Edict again, though. That seems like such a great insurance policy.
Yeah.
And now with Alessi big enough thanks to these spells and the creation project that she can successfully block VAR, makes it even harder for Gozu to get back in the health race. But it's going to be Malaga Amphitheater.
Oh, yeah, a little mind fire. Give them a little bit of, give them some of that mind fire. So this is a chump block now.
Yeah, it sure is. And it's a mandated one because it's 10 coming across, so
yep.
You got to make this play. And this also will make the lie, make that go off. So they're going to get to invoke again. They picked up a Gorilla Fighter.
Love that.
So does Gozu have a way out? The Dinosaur Nest turned over, makes that a 3-3. The biggest issue for Gozu right now is End of an Era will not deal with Galai because it's a 4-cost unit. They don't know about the Gorilla Fighter, but if the Dinosaur just stays black to block it, that's too much. Also, the Sight can play Daring Maneuver in a moment, and that giving +2/+2 to a Scorpion will be lethal. So it's going to take quite a lot of work here. We're going to see Shadow Etchings now. End of an Era. It feels like Gozu just didn't have a way out of this problem because, yeah, that does debuff Galai down to an 8-5. But, yeah, I mean, just too much. And we see the power of abundance there doing a lot of nice things for A rank 13.
Yeah, just a day late, dollar short. I mean, there was a lot of ways for Gozu to handle everything but take too much damage, or keep their health total in a certain place but not handle everything, and just one turn, one power, however you want to describe it, just a little bit short, and A rank moves on to the top 8.
Yeah, I mean, a well-earned victory between two of our top competitors on the competitive scene. So we're going to check out Gowser versus Phoenix now, and is it right that this is the last match? All right, so Gowser is up a game here, so they've got Argenport this weekend, and we see Minotaur Lighthoof up and flying, Phoenix going for an End of an Era, but looks like that Lighthoof is going to be a huge problem. Exploit here is going to take it out. So Tazbu making a comeback this weekend, and now we see Argenport control. And this has got to be quite close to lethal. Good chance here, Gowser, after they go through the exercise of finding the agenda from Speaking Circle, is going to have lethal. And before I could finish that sentence, Patrick, I saw Streets of Flame be selected. And there's at any cost. And both of those can deal 3 damage. And they will, and that will unlock these flying units for a lethal attack. Gowser in Argenport control takes down Xenon, so haven't seen Argenport yet this weekend, but we'll be seeing it potentially in our top 8 very soon.
Argenport, it's back.
It's
back, baby.
All right. Yeah, it's been a...
Tavrod. We got Tavrods in there. It's the Black Books.
Could be. All right, so Gauzer's moving on. Phoenix is done for the weekend. We're going to take a break and be back with the top 8 in a few minutes. Stay tuned. Are there any decks? Are you much of a deck builder? And if so, do you have a favorite deck that you've built yourself over the years?
I wouldn't say that I'm a deck builder. Like, I don't get ideas like that, but I think my skills are best in the fact that I see like when a deck is good, and I also try to figure out like how to make it better. So it's more like deck tuning, or I don't know how you call it. Maybe that.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite deck from all of your years playing?
Probably Yetis. Like, it was my first tournament, like these open tournaments. I think Yetis became a good deck just before that. I saw the lists with, they were a bit more going big. And I was thinking that if you go faster, smaller, then you might have a better chance. So I made that deck for me and one of my friends, Talion. I think he's well known in the tournament series. And I think he did in the qualification, he was second and I was third on our first tournaments with Yetis. So probably Yetis is my favorite deck of all time.
Very cool. Do you have a favorite card for what it does in the game?
Not really. Maybe Torch, just efficient 3 damage.
Nothing wrong with that. And do you have a favorite art piece of any of the cards?
No, not that I can think of, like not right away. I think I like how all the artwork is done, like the overall experience with the art. I find it cute and amusing.
Well, we try, and well, that's definitely not my department, is the art, but try to give them some good ideas for some of the cards, for maybe something they can draw, and they really blow me away a lot. So glad to hear you enjoy it too. Is your favorite? Normally, we ask what your favorite tribe is. Is it Yetis?
Yeah, it is. Have to be.
Do you have a bad card, a card that's maybe not the most powerful, that you find yourself playing a lot, that you get kind of hooked on?
No, I think I try to avoid bad cards in general.
Well, it's a crippling addiction for some of us, so I'm glad to hear
Yeah.
you stay clean. Is there a card in the game that always has your number? Maybe it just lines up really well against the kinds of decks that you typically play?
Some sort of mass removal, probably like hailstorm or harsh rule or something like that. All those different variants, like not the cards that I enjoy playing against most. So
if you could change anything about any card in Eternal, what would you change and why?
this is really not my area, so I haven't really given any thought about that. I see a lot of discussion about this kind of stuff, so but I usually just, I'm not interested in it. Like, I play the game as it is and I'm fine with it.
Fair enough. If you could have one battle skill in real life, what would it be?
Flying.
It's a good answer.
It would be very nice to be able to fly.
All right. So at this point, curious how you think that you sort of got to this level where you are going to be competing in the World Championships. How would you describe to somebody if they were curious, like how do you get really good at a game? And were there any big level up moments along the way for you?
Uh, I don't think that I've gotten any better. Like for me, it's like there is a lot of people who are kind of up there on the level of like that you can win tournaments with that level, but then you just have to be lucky a few times in a row in a tournament, and that's for me that would be the like how do you get to be better. Like I really don't know. Like I know that there is a lot of new players and you can get better in the game by playing more, but I don't know how. Like maybe watch a lot of streams. Like there is a lot of good streamers, at least, who are also playing on the high level. So I do that, and I don't know. I really don't have advice for how to get better.
Uh, I think your the piece of advice you cited of watching other good players play is really great, because there's kind of this trap of you only know what you know, and when you watch somebody else play, that can be a much faster way to gain insights and gain knowledge than you discovering them yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we are here for the top 8 at the Open, and yeah, this is days moving pretty quickly, Patrick. A lot of players knowing what they're doing and getting the job done in these matches.
Yeah, very, very, very quick games. That isn't to say it's been particularly aggressive. Been a lot of mid-range strategies that have kind of sort of risen to the top here, but the games, one way or the other, get over relatively quickly.
Yeah, and you see, I think one thing that stood out from these creation decks is how useful Fearless Crescendo has been at both giving them sort of this angle of making a flying threat to get through if their initial plan doesn't work, but then also as a way to lock up the games against maybe some of the countermeasures, whether it's Edict of Grodov or Stand Together. But it seems like there's at least a split among the players playing this archetype about whether or not you're going to have those Stand Togethers in your starting deck or in the market. All right. So now we're going to check out Borogov versus the Burgund. And yeah, so the Burgund's definitely got something that does not look like what we've seen so far here. They've got a Huru control deck. We see a couple of copies of Fall of the Spire. That's a harsh rule effect that also prevents players from playing cards on their next turn that share a name with a card in their void. And that can be very nice when you're up against a deck loaded up with tons of 4-ofs.
And I gotta say, historically, Zenin not that strong against Huru control. I mean, this is a metagame call. If you sort of are on the next level, you expect that there's going to be a lot of the sort of the Combrei Alessi style decks. People will go to Zenin as a result of that, and then you have Huru to mop up.
Yeah, a lot of interaction not getting through right now for Borogov. Dismantle, send an agent, and banish. Along with really sinister rumors, but they're going to get to maybe get rid of one of those. Aurelian Merchant is going to go and pick up Xenon Temple. The Burgund's going to get to Wisdom of Elders, finding Stormhall Plating, and a Harsh Rule. So lots of sweepers for the Burgund. They're going to Hailstorm right away, stop Borogov from getting to a 5-drop this turn. Always a question with something like Eavesdrop. Do you wait till your opponent gets low enough on cards to play it? But they're going to just fire off this eavesdrop now, and against a Huru control deck, you're not sure that they're ever going to get there.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Wow, look.
Historically.
So the Burgund is feeling very good about having a ton of sweepers because they decided to discard a Boundless Knowledge instead of one of the 3 harsh roll effects in hand. And now they've got a 4th one in the 3rd copy of Fall of the Spires. And they're going to get rid of Skycrag Synthesis. So credit where credit's due for Borgov, or for the Burgund, that they've kind of got a game plan in mind, and it's that if I just play enough harsh rules in a game, I am not going to lose to you, and we're going to get to see how that works.
Yeah, this is one of those. We talked about this at the beginning of the broadcast about the deck lists being open. This is the type of play that you would not make on the ladder. This is a function of having your opponent's deck list and knowing they really can't go that far over the top of me just playing a bunch of harsh rules, and eventually they're just going to run out of action.
All right, so back into the market with the 2nd Aurelian Merchant. Kind of working our way through all of this extra spot removal. And they pick up a Grodov's Burden now with Althead Ascending 2nd in line. The Burgund, it's a time for the first of these harsh rule style effects. Now we're going to see a Genev Merchant. And that's going to grab Helio the Skywinder. So a Xenon Initiation now for Borgov. On Althead's Ascending, plus Grodov's Burden. So now with Exalted, if there was an Ice Bolt on the Althead Ascending, it would just pass right on to the Aurelian Merchant. Oh, but I see. We're going to do it onto the Genev Merchant as a way to get a little extra power. Sure.
Right. This rolls up the 3 cards for the Helio next turn, and then you can Fall of Spire, Harsh Rule, the Aftermath of the Zen Temple, and then it's your cards versus theirs.
Well, it looks like we're not going to be doing either of those. We're going to be getting instead Vision of Austerity to hit the Grodov's Burden. This does mean we're going to get to see World Joiner come down from the site, and now with the Time Etchings, how big of a turn can Borgov have?
Pretty funny that the Eavesdrops and the Zenon Temples make the Fall of the Spire actually better for the Burgund because there's just no void.
Sure.
That's an emerging gameplay.
So yeah, we see the Genev Merchant get stolen thanks to Zenon Temple, and this sure does look queued up now for Harsh Rule. But Borgov's going to play into it a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, what else are you going to do? I mean, the clock that you... I guess...
Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's an argument that your clock is actually sufficient to force the issue. And now, the dead cards, the Banish, the Send the Agent, Eramas Designs, just adding up.
All right, so when you play on Master Victim without any units, it gets +3 strength and charge, so it cracks in. Does Burgund feel good enough about this board to play Helio? They do. They'll draw a Defiance, a Huru Painting, and an Ice Bolt. They can't play anything else this turn. And Borgov can use Send an Agent to get rid of Helio if it were to chump, which it will. So yeah, the Burgund looks like they're just now going to just kind of grind this out because so many answers in hand. Another Eavesdrop. Is this going to get met by a Skycrag Synthesis? That's an inscribed negate that when you negate the spell, you get to draw a random unit equal to the spell's cost. Gets
Ooh!
2/5 Battle Blur Centaur. Ice Bolt, number 2 of the game. It's going to go right on to Vikram. Borgov will get a little extra power, but Burgund is pretty... At this point of the game, might be able to win if they were to say all of your cards are free for the rest of the game.
Yep. Centaur's kind of nice with it. You just start attacking. Oh. The Synthesis probably makes it too attractive to just say go. But I was hoping we would get to, I mean, you can't send an agent hit Eramas Design.
No, you can't. All right, another banish for Borgov, and yeah, there are ways to number of ways to build Xenon where you are good against control. Tazbu's a pretty great card. Twisted Farmer, really nice.
Yep.
Because, things like just the game going very long on all those Ice Bolts really adds up you being able to play a lot of Mandrakes. But maybe not the kind of cards that we see in Borgov's list. Though I do like the combination of Huntmaster Vikram with, like, Sinister Rumors. You pick that one. Those buffs it gets when they have no units stack up. Though I will say, the Burgund has decided to play a very card draw heavy version of Huru this weekend. We see Honor the Claws, Wisdom of Elders, and Boundless Knowledge. And just over time, that's just going to be so much stuff for Borgov to ever try to work through.
Yep. And there, again, it's just there's so many dead cards and not enough merchants and not even enough stuff of note to go get, even if you happen to draw enough merchants to smooth it all out.
I'm not sure if Borgov's initial hand was a 7 or a 6. I think it was a 7, but kind of seeing the way that this game is played out makes me think that a hand that has like both Banish and Send an Agent in it and nothing that looks particularly exciting to have against Huru control might be a recipe in the future for a redraw.
Yeah, it's tough because, you have this feeling of like, well, we're going to play a million turns regardless, and I'm going to draw these dead cards anyway. I'm sort of just priced in. But, you look at this hand now, and those dead cards are painful. Maybe you got to try to mulligan for something aggressive, something with a nest, just anything that can get you kind of moving a little bit.
Counterfeiter, okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, Stormhall Plating is going to make this game end very fast. Neither Dismantle or Banish can kill it. There's an All-Head Ascending, but no shortage of ways in the Bergen's hand to kill it. Yeah, kind of going back to what we were talking about, I think when you're up against a very heavy card draw strategy version of Control, a good way to try to beat that is you don't necessarily need to have the most aggressive of starts, but putting them in positions in the mid-game on those turns when they'd want to cast Boundless Knowledge or Honor of Claws, making it to those returns where they also want to be sweeping the board is a nice way to do it, and you can kind of jam up their power enough to make their life awkward.
Yeah, you're trying to toggle back and forth between they're not able to spend their power into there's too many demands on their power.
Right. All right. This is some mop-up time action here. Borgov did find a Send an Agent, which will be able to answer a Stormhall Plating, but with another Stormhall Plating in hand, it's going to be an issue. So we'll see Send an Agent hit the plating. The Burgund's going to get to start their turn with a Counterfeiter. Put Borgov out of their misery here as they're going to take down game number 1. And Borgov's got their work cut out for them because, man, this looks like a really rough matchup. This is the classic sort of mid-range control going up against sort of true control matchup where the tools for the mid-range deck not up to snuff.
Yeah, and you look at a card like Zen Temple, which you normally think of as, okay, the game's going on for a long time, it's source card advantage, we get to the World Joiner, that can be sweet, whatever. That usually assumes you're playing against a deck of units of similar size or smaller. That's where you get to have that sort of game. Here, Zen Temple was like, that was nothing. That had nothing to do with anything going on in the game. And if your best bullet for this sort of matchup is like it's your site that's supposed to be hard to attack, is that card, then you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of about 2 cards worth of action, right? Like, you're going to get that Scheme and the World Joiner. And the World Joiner is very big but doesn't do much. And then Xenon Initiation and the Scare maybe not adding the most to the threats. And so when you really just distill it down to just those 2, it kind of adds up to, does this give me enough against somebody who's going to be drawing a lot of cards? All right, so we see a very interesting looking hand here for Borgov. They have Sinister Rumors, Exploit, 2 Eavesdrops, and a Moonstone Vanguard.
I don't know if this hand's going to be enough, but you can't do a whole lot better. I mean, you can very aggressively go after the Bergen's hand here. Let's see what's up.
Oh my. Oh my. Sinister Rumors. The enemy player discards each copy of a spell of your choice from their deck. So what's going to be the key take? Is it going to be a card draw effect like Honor of Claws? Or is it going to be maybe something like the Harsh Rules or the Fall of the Spires? I'd say one of the big issues here is that this isn't a control deck built around any particular spell. In fact, what it's got is it's got a couple copies of a few base effects.
I really assume that Sinister Rumors was just on Plunder Detail to try to curve into Eavesdrop and beyond. So I'm curious if there's like something in mind here. Okay.
Skycrake Synthesis. That's an interesting take.
I buy that if you're trying to resolve these Eavesdrops. I mean, it's a very good card against this deck in general.
But speaking of some amount of redundancies here, the Burgund picks up Display of Survival, and that card can provide Face Aegis. Now, Exploit might take it here, but you got to kind of decide how are you playing this game, and if you'd love to be able to take their card draw when you're going to be maybe casting a couple of Eavesdrops this game. But I just don't know if that's going to work out if Display of Survival gives them Aegis.
And I'm a little surprised to see Genev Merchant among the selections here because if I have a bunch of Eavesdrops in hand, all I care about is just go after the card drawing. Hopefully my opponent doesn't have just enough resources to work with to really leverage the market. If you're worried about Genev Merchant, what's the thing it's most likely to get is a Helio. Well, you're a million turns away from that if you're just like going after their hand or whatever.
All right, so one of the Eavesdrops got plundered, and now we're going to see Sinister Rumors number 2.
I mean, if you're going to plunder that, I feel like if you're going to plunder that way, I think you got to get rid of Moonstone Vanguard. Like I just don't see Moonstone Vanguard running 99 yards for the touchdown. I don't. I feel like you got to soften things up a little bit, and then maybe you top deck well, and something can take it from there.
So Wisdom of Elders now for the Burgund. We saw Fall of the Spires get hit by Sinister Rumors. Now the Burgund had already drawn one this game, and that's a critical thing to remember with Sinister Rumors is that it only discards copies of those spells from your opponent's deck, and if they've already drawn one this game, it won't hit that copy. Now we'll see Eavesdrop, and this is not going to feel great for Borogov as Display of Survival is going to get played. Gain an Aegis, draw a card. There's Aura Condemnation. That's a phenomenal answer.
Good against the big O's.
Yeah. Like, VAR is going to come down, and it's going to be a 5/5, and then when it gets hit by Aura Condemnation, that is going to feel very bad. 5 extra armor and a Stormhall plating usually isn't the difference, but it's the way this game's heading.
Doesn't hurt, you know what I mean?
Yeah, here we go. Burgund attacking Aura Condemnation on Vara. Borogov just hit 5th power. It is depleted, so next turn they'll be able to play Moonstone Vanguard. And Moonstone Vanguard, if you can kind of get it going against a control deck, it's great. It's going to draw you extra cards and put pressure on their health total. But this is taking way too long to come out. And, I mean, the Burgund is not short on ways to deal with this. The only question is how. And they're going to go for Ice Bolt here. They could have used something like a Harsh Rule to get the clean 1-for-1 as opposed to this, which they're kind of 2-for-1ing themselves. But the Burgund can more than afford to make up for it, and this gives them all of their power available. So now they can cast probably a copy of Boundless Knowledge and an unleashed copy of that same spell.
Right. I think, one, that in case things get out of control, the Harsh Rule is what an insurance policy, right? There's also something nice about spending all of your power, so you go to 8 power on your turn, and then you have, you know, the world is your oyster. You can go ahead and Boundless Knowledge if nothing happens, and if something does happen, again, all your power is still available.
Yeah, Boundless Knowledge is one that, you know, was in Cold Hunt, or sorry, it was in our most recent expansion. Name is just totally well, set 12. We always just refer to them by their number in development.
Set 13.
Set 13. Yeah, right. Unlucky 13.
It's called Unleashed. Set is called Unleashed.
Yeah, of course. The 7th Unleashed was called.
Andrew, come on.
I know. This is what some of my
It
best
says
work at.
balanced knowledge. It's on Draw 2 with Unleash. What says that? It's on the tip of my tongue. I just don't have.
What set is the Unleash card draw speller? We haven't seen that one be like a major metagame player even in Expedition.
Right.
But this is like one that we always kind of knew. I mean, when we were working on it and seeing it out in the world, it was like there's some players out there who are just like, you mean a card draw spell which could give me an extra copy of itself?
Yeah, I know.
That's the way they want to be living. That's the way the Bergen's living, and right now Borgov is the one who is dying.
It's that classic. It's that classic thing that happens with like all those kind of card drawing cards. You know, it's like doesn't have to be good. Someone will be into it, and you know what? I bet it's better than we think it is. Here we are.
So Aegis plus Stormhawk plating means it's insulated from the first Sending Agent, but it is going to get hit by the second one. And so that's going to keep the Stormhawk plating around. Or, sorry, the Stormhawk plating is going to go away. Now the Ice Bolt's going to take care of the All Head. So still a clean board. And, you know, Xenon Temple, Hunmaster Vikram. Borgov's going to get him back down below starting health total.
A shot across the bow.
Might be the last time we see it. I mean, this was Borgov, I will say, they really teched out. Like, when you are playing starting deck Aramat's designs,
Yeah.
along with all of this other removal, cheap removal.
You got some people in your crosshairs.
Absolutely.
No question.
It wasn't the Burgund.
No.
And it
was
wasn't
not.
this deck. 2 more copies of Boundless Knowledge. I guess the first one was hoping to hit a Skycrag Synthesis.
Well, no,
I wonder
'cause
if the
those-
Burgund remembered. Yeah.
Those got rumored however
Right,
many times ago.
right.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the only reason why I could think of. I mean, maybe you might as well. I don't know. Who knows? It's not going to matter that much because realistically the way this is going to go down is that sooner or later the Burgund is going to hit another copy of Stormhawk plating. They're going to use that Justice Relic weapon to finish the game off, as this is going to be just take a couple of turns here realistically. Hitting for 12 a turn, and Borgov is down to 16. Yeah, that's wow. That Xenon Silex is not online. Definitely one of the drawbacks when you go very heavy on one influence. You might not turn on your Silexes until very late in the game. I mean, they've been ice bolted a couple times, but yeah, it's traditional that you wouldn't even play many Shadow Sigils. It's kind of rough when you draw one naturally.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 0 or 1 if you are searching under certain conditions.
Right. Right on.
Thinking about playing this all head, I guess.
All Head is, yeah, I guess the one reason they didn't is All Head has that sort of 8 influence mode unlocked of it getting buffed by any other units you play in the same turn. So there's Send an Agent. So that is promising in that right now it would get the Xenon Temple off the board, though, if, or sorry, the Stormhawk plating off. But with more Boundless Knowledges, maybe able to find another display of survival. Wow, the Burgund didn't even bother playing it. Guess they were going to have to discard a hand size if they did. So here's Send an Agent. The Burgund's going to go for it. Boundless Knowledge. If they find a display of survival, they win on the spot. They did. I don't see any way for Borgov to buy another turn here as display of survival gets played. Gain a face Aegis. And now we will see Stormhawk plating get it done for the Burgund as they advance to our top 4. And I feel confident that the other Xenon decks won't be as poorly matched up as the Borgov was there, but they got some ground to make up.
Yeah, that was not close at any point. That was a total one-sided affair both games.
Certainly, I'm sure there's a mixture of delight and terror for players at home seeing a very unitless control deck just trounce late on in a tournament like this. It's got its fans.
Actually got it done, got it over with pretty quick, all told.
Yeah, that's definitely been one of the nicer aspects of Stormhawk playing.
Yeah, just stop messing around. Just get it over with.
All right, Apple Chips in A rank 13. We got a creation mirror. I'm detecting a creation project on both sides. And Combray Lawmage has been an interesting. That's another card that can line up nicely against these creation decks. Certainly good in the mirror. Stops shenanigans like token makers, and if you warp, it's not like you get to play another card from your hand. But it's been silenced. E rank 13 is warping a Grenadin drone. Right now they've got a flyer thanks to probably an abundance earlier, and that is making the difference here. This is a game 3 scenario. Grenadin drone on top.
Remember, there's some priced in unblockable damage coming in through those shifted scorpions. So Apple just has to be mindful of not getting so low that that presents lethal in a few turns.
That's a great point. So what's Apple Chips thinking about here? Are they maybe gonna? I mean, if you do some stand together-ing, could you maybe get an attack going?
Well, you know, you kind of have to do 2. I feel like to have a shot, because it's pretty easy to play around the first one. So then you need to get to 6 power to have that even be an option. So we're not looking at this turn. Maybe next turn.
Yeah, so they're gonna attack, and I think that's partly because they've got more things in hand to play. Yeah, the timetable for Apple Chips is tricky. If you're at 15 and you take 4 a couple of times, and then you got some unblockable scorpions to the other side, that'll end it very quick. So Apple Chips is probably, or A rank 13 is going to be well aware of Stand Together and probably guess that's the card that's about to be played, so they're going to be making these blocks with that in mind. And they made some double blocks that kind of made it so that Stand Together didn't need to get played, so there's still this sort of element of suspense, so to speak.
Although it's interesting because I figured with 4/3 flyer against 2/2 dinosaur, you kind of want to stand together anyway, just to have that trade occur. And if you're looking at a sea of double blocks, you might have been profitable to stand together right there.
Yeah, that's true. I think it would have actually. Maybe it would have done a little more if they had played it. So, not sure what Apple Chips is looking for here. But yeah, so now the 4/3 Sentinel is attacking, and Apple Chips did not block. So they think that they need to play it more aggressively than maybe you or I were initially thinking here. We see Praxis Painting combining nice with Beckoning Loom, and that's probably also another abundance unit, but it's doing good work here. Another copy of Creation Project coming for A rank 13 next turn.
Timing very nicely with the Scorpions coming off of Shift.
Indeed. So trickiness here for Apple Chips. If they play the Power Cell and the Aurelian Supplier, they wouldn't necessarily be able to play Stand Together again this turn. But this is going to let them go deeper into their deck. I guess right now Aurelian Supplier is only going to draw 1 anyway. You can't have more units than the opponent when the opponent has 12 units.
That's the game rule.
Okay, so a lot of things attacking here. The dinosaur is hanging back though. Gonna try to do some air defending. And that's why we didn't see it get sort of in the mix last turn. Was the dinosaur nest was flipping over, getting that extra +2/+2. So here we see another Stand Together. So, for a rank 13, they're going to get to see an Initiate of the Sands on the top of the deck. They've got another creation project they can play this turn. That gets those unblockable Scorpions up to 6 damage. If they can find 5 more from the rest of their units, that will be lethal, but they can't. So they're going to set up to try to win over the next few turns here. An abundance.
Not a whole lot ready to go with that, but
Yeah, there's just a question of sequencing here. You'd like to play the Aurelian Supplier first to make the abundance bigger, but then you want more. You would just draw it. You wouldn't get to warp it. So they got a Scale Seeker. Patrick, I don't think that's going to become a factor in time.
unlikely. I mean, you don't know. We might have 4 more turns in us. We can see.
It's a Praxis Banner. Now those Scorpions for Apple Chips in the bottom left, unblockable as they're coming off of their shift. But at 8, Apple Chips does need to make sure that they are not going to get attacked for too much because they have 11 units as it stands. There's a full board on the other side, and at 8 health, you can't let too many of them get through.
Yeah, so 11 versus 12 means you really can't make an attack because you're barely surviving as is. I guess you have that's like about as good as you can do there.
So Conclave got warped. Now there is a Desert Marshal on top. And yeah, this is one of the nice things when you've got a full board and units in hand, it makes it easier to make some attacks because these 3/3 deadlies, Apple Chips is going to need to trade off, and A rank 13 is going to be able to sort of restock after that. But as it stands, Apple Chips will not.
Yeah, multiple suppliers too. So the previous turn, A rank has 1 additional unit, so that 1 attack is basically the safe thing that you can see from Apple Chips. It leaves it 12 to 10. So 2 get through, you're at 8, you ostensibly survive. So it's actually really sharp here of Abrac to try to whittle this down because they can gas back up with their leftovers. Apple Chips really can't, or at least it's much harder to.
So Marshall's going to knock the Aegis off of that dinosaur because if we find 1 more Desert Marshal, it's a very big game here for a rank 13. Aurelian Supplier just draws 1. But yeah, they're back at a full board of units. Creation Project, it's another Abundance, so Initiate of the Sands plus Abundance. What are we going to get? A Belligerent Yeti.
Don't mind that.
Thanks to the Creation Project, you can even twist it once and still have it around. But you might want to do that if you want a 4/1 as better blocker. No twisting yet. We'll see. Yeah, I mean these Creation Projects just keep on gassing up A rank 13.
Well, now we're looking at lethal, right? Because it's 12 against 9. So, and every unit's a minimum of 3. I guess it's not lethal, right? We're looking at 9 damage against 11.
Yeah.
So Arak has to kind of dial up another push a little bit, get some trades, gas back up.
Yep. Yeah, and it's an interesting mix of units for Apple Chips. They've got a couple of units like these 6/6 dinosaurs, which are going to eat things, but then other units like the 2/2 and the 1/1 Grenadin drone. How is the Grenadin drone a 1/1?
Which one?
In the bottom right for Apple Chips. They have a Creation Project, don't they? Weird. Maybe decay damage.
Probably, yeah.
All right, stand together off the top for A rank 13. That is going to really change the dynamic, but still no attack.
Yeah, well, that would have been a lethal attack, right? Because everything's 4. I mean, Apple Chips could obviously have a card in hand or whatever that adds a surprise blocker, but I thought that was the inflection point because then you're looking at 12.
Yeah. Well, a second creation project now for Apple Chips means we're going to be on parity there. Fearless Crescendo making a second flyer could be big, as well as finding a good 3-drop out of the market. Imagine we might see that one. If there's Pristine Light, you could do maybe like a big attack and then Pristine Light all the units back. Looks like a pause for Reflection on top of the deck. That could bounce the Dinosaur. And now with a Exodus, we're going to see all of the units come in, or at least just the flyers, as A rank 13 takes it down, advancing to our top 4. So, yeah, the mirror, you gotta find a way to break through, knowing that your opponent's gonna be well loaded up with units, and seems like neither player was able to effectively keep their opponent off the creation project, and then A rank 13 was able to nicely ride theirs to more and more material, and then ultimately getting that victory.
Yeah, a lot of those attacks weren't the most profitable, but when you're up 3 cards to 2 or 3 cards to 1 for a lot of the game, you can afford to make the sort of attacks, and eventually Eric found Exodus alongside with a stock board, and that was enough to get over the finish line.
All right, so is that it there, Tom? All right, that is it. So we've got a top 4, and when we come back, we will find out who from our semifinalists will be advancing to the finals. Just a few matches left to go in this weekend's Open. Stay tuned and find out who will come out on top.